with Revolution News and Information. This is the disclaimers with Dave and Ed Johnson. I have been notified that a lot more people are listening to us, so hello, I'm Toasted, and I'd like to introduce you to Dave and Ed. You have the floor.
Thank you, folks. This is Ed, and then when I get my introductions, I'll turn it over to Dave. We do appreciate you joining us. We are not lawyers, attorneys, or anything like that. We are men that have years, over, probably 50, 60 years combined in research on these issues. We have combined our education together so we can put it all in one structure. We do have a new website up. That's called the New Oregon Trackers. It is still under construction, and we're working on this so we can start loading up information on it, so we can put court cases up there. We can set up people who have been successful in their structures to post them up so people can read what's going on. They know what's going on. They know how to participate in their structure of life and what's going on. And I mean participate. You have to know the separation of legal and lawful. If you don't know your standing when you're going to court, or you're making out information to a court, or you're writing a court for a traffic citation that they have illegally issued to you, it's knowing how to put it together, write the citation, the offense is on the citation. Remember when a man or woman walks up to you in your car, they want to issue a citation. Remember, that's an armed man or woman threatening your life to commit piracy on you. So you have to look at the whole points of these things, how it combines, how it works together. And if you don't sit there and realize this yourself, it might take a little time, because sometimes it does take a little time for the light to go off in people's heads. We've all been there. Patience is a virtue, and that's the one thing that we have to work with each other on these things. Looking at who's doing what, and we're going to be putting up other people's work up on our site there as well. Revolution News and Information will have its own link up there, and when you click on that, you'll be able to go to all the structure on Revolution News and Information. And then we've got the other one that says Lawful Bloodline American, and we'll be setting that up for the lawful cases. Below that, it says, it should probably look at that. Excuse me a minute. So I go over this, over our website with you, because it's very important what we're doing here for all of us. And if you have cases that are successful, we want to share them. This is the whole point. Because if we don't work together, we cannot educate the children, and without the children being educated, there is no future. And that's the one thing that we all have to realize. With no future, there is no future. And that means for your bloodline too. You know, and it's very important. You have to realize it's your bloodline, because if you don't protect your bloodline, you become extinct. So on the page, when you go to it, we do have it set up where you can click on, you can read what I've got filed at the House and Senate. That's filed. And that's on the right side. And that's below that is Revolution News with our time slot and that for them. And so we'll get more of that structure set up with his links on that, so you can go right to everything on Revolution News. And on the left, we have Fraud in America Facebook. And you can look that up on Facebook. That's Dave's site, my partner's here. And when you click on that, there's a click on that, and I'll take you to the 60 court cases right now today on tax fraud. And that'll bring you into to realize that income tax, and I want to make this clarified for people. I've had disagreements with people here recently that I'm still arguing with, that they're arguing with me, and I'm working and explaining to them that these are the things that need to be done to go after your cases. The other point, if you are a legal citizen, okay, that means you're obligated to pay. That means if you're a registered voter. If you are lawful, okay, hang on a minute. I'm going to have another guy join us. Anyhow, if you're lawful, you don't have to pay taxes. We do have the laws on that right now. Okay, and we've got a thing that Dave just woke up that I wrote up that I've been publishing around, and I'll let him explain that when he comes on the air here, because I want him to do that. He does that really well. He's got it down with the numbers. He's even got the structure on the lawful bloodline, because you have to be a lawful bloodline to be in this country lawfully. Legally, if you're an immigrant or a legal citizen, remember the 14th Amendment, and everybody says the 14th Amendment, oh, turn us into citizens or all enemies. Well, if anybody actually reads the 14th Amendment, if you are a citizen, that means you're a foreign British subject. That means you're a foreigner. You'd have no technical rights in this country. So by law, you're obligated to pay the taxes until your fifth generation. That's all your taxes. But then again, you want to set up your land on the fifth generation so that way you can get it out of the system, so that way when you pass it to your heirs, it's tax-free. And we're working on some templates on that one, and we should have them up here pretty soon, because I'm working on that with other people, because I'm writing that up not only for myself but others. We'll have one set up for legal. We'll have one set up for lawful. We do have one structure that's going to be coming out on the legal. We have that posted up. That's the separation of lawful and legal, and that's on both of our sites, the United States for America, Republic, Elected and Public Servants Oversight. And if you really read the Constitution, it does not say of America. That wasn't changed until after the Civil War. Prior to that, it always said for America. So we don't want to lose that. We don't want to get convinced by other words and changing words and meanings because of democracy. We want to stay away from that. And so when we get this site set up, where it goes to legal citizen, elected, and public servants, and then foreign agents, we'll have it so you can click on those, and it'll take you right to the structure. When it goes to foreign agents, that's going to take you to the Foreign Administration Registration Act of the Department of Justice. Okay? And the point is, when you register, this whole point, it covers you. Because this way, when you're registered and you go to court and they try to treat you as a citizen, well, there's federal laws that protect citizens. But it's knowing how to implement those for each and every circumstances, and hopefully nobody will get in those type of things. But it is know the rights of what a public servant can and cannot do, and we'll be getting into a lot of that as time goes on too. We'll walk people through that. We'll have posts on this site. We'll have the questionnaires for cops. We'll have the one video I do recommend for everybody to watch if you haven't, and it's Don't Talk to Cops, and it's done by a law professor with an investigator there, a cop, and he walks you through his side. The lawyer walks through his side, what to say, now what not to say, and basically just keep your mouth shut. Say you don't answer questions. You know, you don't want to be involved. You're not contracting with them, you know. The less you say, the better off you are in those type of circumstances. You want to hit the key points. This is why when we put out some of the court rulings, if you get to know the court rulings, you can quote it right off to the man or woman, and then you just let them know if they're going to harass you further, this is what you're going to do. I have instruments that I have filed in the Secretary of State and the local courthouse at the local recorder. When you want to file your affidavits and you want to file your information, and I'll post up on our wall the structure of an affidavit. And I'll let Dave explain the 5 points of an affidavit, because I think he's got that down, and I'll put up the case law on it so you realize what an affidavit and the power is. The power of an affidavit is the same structure that took down Nixon, Richard Nixon. If an affidavit was never filed, he would have never been taken out of office. That's how he really was taken out of office, by an affidavit. These things do work. The Democratic Party is terrified and freaking out on it because Dave and I have filed several of them. Other men and women have filed on them too. And, you know, most of these men and women, A lot of them probably really don't know what it is because the way they've been programmed, and some of them really do. You just have to learn how to read body language when you talk to a man or woman and figure out if they're telling the truth or not. And that is the main point that comes from you. That's your education and knowledge that you have to learn yourself. That's like being out in the public, paying attention to your surroundings and looking around. Because the bottom line comes down to is that all this stuff that we are working on with everybody, and I will even post the structure up with creditors. There's ways of dealing with creditors. We're getting this out. We've got other people that we'd like to get on our shows that have done different successful techniques, and we want to get them out for the general public so this way people can see the truth. We want to make sure that, everybody's out there trying to sell you a package. Well, Dave and I and everybody involved here, when we get this website up too, nobody's trying to sell you anything. We do appreciate it if you would go on to Revolution News and Information when we get that up and do some donations to help out with equipment because, we still need some keyboards, we need some chips, we need hard drives. We're trying to boost up our structure so we can get more and more out there so it doesn't have less and less kinks in our system. Because we all have different educational and different knowledges in different fields. So we're sitting here combining all of it together. We want to make sure that we're doing this correctly. So please bear with us while we're putting up the sites and getting this stuff together.
Hey, Mom.
Go ahead.
You too.
Go ahead if you want to speak up. Speak up. Hello? Okay. Well, if somebody wants to speak up, just say excuse me or something, and we don't have a problem. We just like common courtesy on it. We understand free speech. Some people like to cuss. I'm not into that when it really comes down to it because you don't need to cuss. You can just say your words without cussing. That's like the one thing that they started taking out of school, cursive writing. Well, cursive writing, technically, if you go back in history, cursive is cussing when you're writing in cursive. It's cussing at somebody compared to printing. I like cursive writing because if you're doing that, most of the time when you're writing something, you are cursing at somebody. It is learning the fundamentals of words compared to what they really mean, compared to what we've been led to believe they mean. And we'll have that be coming up probably in the next month on the site. We'll get different word structures up there so that people can actually start reading the meanings of one word compared to the other and how attorneys turn them around. And when they tell you different words, you think it means one thing in your mind when it means 180% the opposite direction of what you think it is. And so where we're at right now is getting this stuff together. And so we're trying to make this whole site work for everybody involved with us around. I have other men and women that have cases that we're going to be putting into this site so you can look at their work because the whole point is being responsible for your actions. We are the disclaimers. I have the disclaimers on our YouTube channel, Facebook channels, everything. Okay, because this way, so long as we sit there and tell the truth with honor and we're quoting their structure, and that's the one thing me and Dave do. We quote their administrative rules. We quote their structure. Okay, this way, when people sit there and say, oh, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, wait a minute. We're quoting their rules, their structure that they have to go by. If they don't go by it, this is how public employees can lose their budgets. Now, we do realize that public employees, and I'm addressing this to a lot of them and beside ourselves, that they realize that when a budget is totally cut and this programmed, it can never be brought back. So the one thing is I would like to encourage if we have public servants, especially law, peace officers, all right, remember, you honor your oath and you can take over the budget so long as it's public. Everything's open to the public. You can take over that budget, still run it and control it. so long as you're honoring the Constitution. And I do have stuff like that can be worked out on that for that. But that means you're going to be signing a red border oath for your office. So this way you're committing to the oath of the Constitution to do that. I know we got a lot of constitutional sheriffs out there. We've got a lot of them waking up who are not arresting people or kidnapping them, held them for ransom without driving for a license or insurance, because you don't need either one technically by every state law and every federal law. But they're doing that primarily. They go after us because they use that as commercial industry of immigration called citizenship. So when you're a registered citizen, you are claiming you are a British subject. You're not a lawful bloodline American. Me, I'm not a registered voter. I don't participate in racketeering, fraud, and extortion. I have been in elections myself. I have been elected official myself. I've lost 2 races because of electrician fraud, I should say, because, dead voters and other things. And so that'll be in the other part of the book will be coming out. But this way people can know the truth of what's going on in your system. You can't get all angry and stomp your feet. You have to realize how to address your servants. And this is the one point that none of us has actually been educated and directed in this stuff. We've always been taught to bow our heads, basically, especially when it comes to the figure of authority. But remember, the authority is you as an adult. You have servants. I don't bow my head to any minister, and I sure will never do it to the Pope when I see him. Ever. He bows his head. He's the servant. And yes, I am the man that called for the Pope's soul out, and I just redid it on his Facebook site the other day. So that's why he is the unofficial Pope. And that happened March 13th, 2013, when he resigned. And after he resigned, he's been recalling the birth certificates, judges, attorneys. And all this stuff is up there for you to look at. This is all real what's going on. It's like, the point is, Christmas never started until 1841. None of that existed. But they write it in the history books and people believe what they read. That's the point. People believe what they read instead of investigating, research. And I have read history books where I've seen them write different things on a man or woman that were 100% wrong. But they do that convincing, and it was rewritten. A lot of your books are rewritten by democracy today to change history. I even read a book the other day that said we never won World War II. There was never a ceasefire or anything. Okay, well, after that, we're free at that point. We were, until the democracy after 1967 started taking hold of the state, and then after Bush and Clinton, they're all in the same bed. They've been friends going back to Watergate. And back then, Watergate, who was the CIA director? George Bush Sr. So it is looking at real history, how things have transpired. Yes, Hillary was indicted back then. She was disbarred for fraud, racketeering, and extortion through the Watergate project. That is real facts. That is real history. So when we're putting this stuff together to get it out to all of us, so this way we can learn. And if somebody sees something, please, if we're wrong on something, don't be bad. We're not bashful. Correct us.
May I?
Right? Go ahead.
Isn't the United States of America a corporate entity?
The United States of America is a corporate identity. The corporation ran out 6 years ago. So they're free running right now. They can't even re-register as a corporation, but that is correct. Okay.
So
U.S.C. 3002 definition 15, United States means a federal corporation.
Correct. So anyhow, go ahead. Did you have something else you would like to add on that, guy?
Well, So does that mean that the corporation doesn't exist?
Technically, it does not exist, and it is fading out, and that's why this whole battle with Trump and Clinton is going on, because they're trying to keep the corporation going. And with Trump, we're trying to get it so that way he just runs the corporation and stays out of the we the people's business. Because that's all the president is supposed to run is the corporation for we the people. And the profits of that is supposed to come back to we the people, not going to England or the Vatican.
Oh, Edward.
Go ahead.
There's that little thing called the, let me see, just a second. The 1774 Act.
Yes.
Which states that the United States is to do away with everything Britain has to offer.
Mm-hmm.
That would include taxes, tariffs.
Right.
The fact that corporations are not to make excessive profits. I mean, that's an interesting document I found on your website. It's on our website, Oregon Trackers.
Yeah, it is on our website,
and
you can copy it and use it.
Yes, absolutely. I just sent that to Donald, by the way, this afternoon.
Okay.
It's about, a little over a page, the entire thing, if it's even a page.
Oh, you're talking the one you just sent me on the Bancroft case?
No. No, this is
okay. I was going to say, that's a little bit more than a page. I just sent that out, too, and posted it on his wall.
Administrative Acts of Congress of 1774.
Right.
The Avalon Project. It's on the Avalon Project.
Correct. So anyhow, I want to see if the gentleman had anything else he would like to add into this, too, because if you got something else, let's bring it in, because we might know it, but somebody else might know it, so the floor is yours right now. Go ahead.
Well, so the way I'm seeing it, there is no what I guess would be called lawful de jure servant government of these United States.
Well,
because if they're a corporation, and the only way that you can be an individual can be a part of that corporation would be to what's called a voter registration card, which makes you a proxy of the corporation.
Mm-hmm.
So if they don't exist, and we don't have actually they wouldn't be our servants. Because if we're lawful citizens, we wouldn't have a voter registration card, like you say.
No, that's true.
Show me on that voter registration card, the contract, voter registration card, where they disclose any of this.
Now, they don't tell you everything.
That is called fraud in the inducement.
Mm-hmm.
That is known as honest service fraud.
Personage.
That is known as violation of Uberum Fides, ultimate truth and contract law. Therefore, it is null and void on face ab initio.
Okay, yeah, I see that, but even still, there's no de jure government, the servant government.
Well,
we're being run by a dictatorship.
Yeah, called a CEO.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. But there is lawful government, and that was part of the treaty and the structures that we went through with the Civil War. And if you look up Title 5, Section 3331 through 3333, that is how these men and women get paid under that structure to honor their oath of office. So because we have servants in the matter, because me and Dave have filed this in Congress ourselves, all right, we do have servants, but the bottom line comes down is we, the people, have to get these people in check. It's like when you go into a courtroom, they fly that British flag with the gold fringe flag. That's Executive Order 10834. Now, Dave and I do have a template up on both of our sites, Facebook sites. You can utilize that, copy it, and serve the judge. I always suggest mailing a registered certified copy first when you go to their kangaroo court. Register it with the court clerk downstairs when you walk in. That way you got a stamped copy from that clerk, okay? And then you walk up and you make sure you have a copy of that and serve it to the clerk of the court. And before the judge can even do anything in your case, they have to read it. And if you make them read it. Wait a minute, you have an instrument right in front of you before you can even speak. So I don't have to do that. Well, if you don't read it, by what I filed on you, sir, by federal law with that flag and you're presenting it, right now it's a 1-year term in jail, and I like the sheriff to arrest you. You serve the judge it. The cop it, the sheriff's department it. Because that is a lawful order to arrest them. It's done by executive order and by administrative rules, and it's intact.
Correct.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Ed. These judges today think that whatever they're doing in court, they are the court. Excuse me, they are not the court. They are to keep order in the court.
And we do have the administrative rules of the court on that fact stating that. And that is actually in the affidavit in the one that we have, 10834 on our site. All that is written in the structure. It turned out, we started at 18 pages, we put everything in it, turned out to be 38 pages. So everything in the kitchen sink is that, because anytime a judge wanted to go say something, you already have the argument in that instrument.
And
we've already put the argument
to shoot
in the
his mouth
instrument.
off,
So
you can have
go
him
ahead.
reclused.
Yes. Also, too, you want to make sure him and any attorney there, what is that called, Dave?
Conflict of interest.
Interest statement. And you want to make sure the clerk makes sure that you make sure that's on record, that you want a conflict of information statement before they can proceed. And you can only do that in municipality structure citations. If there is an injured party or property damage, that type of stuff will not work. But the other point on personal damage and property damage, you do an affidavit to the court that, and if you talk to the injured party and you guys are trying to work something out, you serve the court, because the court cannot even legally be involved until the parties have already come to a conclusion that they couldn't handle it themselves. They had to go to a third party for their decision.
And if you are the crime victim, you are the corpus delicti, 18 U.S.C. 3771. This
is the one thing me and Dave do. We're going to tell you what the codes are, what the laws are, what they have to go by. Okay? And we've had people chew me out, and I've been chewed out by people, you don't need to do all this stuff. Well, I do it all because every time I do it, I never hear back from the court. And a lot of people I've watched do this stuff, they end up in court, they go through these kangaroo situations. There's another guy that's been fighting a case for years, and they got him back in, and it's like you have to file the criminal charges on your kidnappers. When you're kidnapped and held for ransom, and I've got the laws on that too, that they can't arrest you, even by a warrant signed by a judge. Only a grand jury, a lawful grand jury, can issue a bench warrant. A judge cannot issue a warrant. It has to be written in an affidavit, and a grand jury, all of them, have to autograph that or sign it to be a warrant. If they don't sign it, it cannot be a legitimate warrant.
And I just sent you the affidavit on the constitutional criminal complaint. You need to post that to the site.
Okay, I'll get that in a minute. We'll get that up. This is the one thing that I post up a lot of this stuff on our sites. We have a lot of templates up that. And like I said, we're working with others to get their information on our site too. Because we're verifying what people do, too. We're not going to be putting up people that are claiming this and anybody who's out there trying to make a fuck up. Go ahead, Dave.
That was someone else said.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. The next person speak up.
What Ed and I are trying to tell you people that we have rights, okay, and they cannot legislate against a right. So when this is why I've sent to Ed this affidavit on filing a constitutional criminal complaint, criminal investigation mandated under U.S.C. 18 at 4, 241, 242, Title 42 at 1983, 1985, 1986, 1988. Notice to agent is notice to principal.
If I may.
Yes, go ahead.
Hey, hi Ed and Dave, this is Mike, Mike School. What I wanted to ask is when you're quoting 18 U.S.C. 241, 242, how come you don't quote 245? Because that's your federally protected activities, which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Thank you. These are points that we're all putting together in it. Thank you, Mike. That's the point that we need to, when we miss something, bring it up. And why don't you repeat that for everybody, too?
245.
Under Title 18 U.S.C. 245, that's your federally protected activities, which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Thank you.
It's on the violation of rights warning notice that I have on the website, too.
And we appreciate. See, this is the stuff that Ed and I know that we're not 100% correct on all this stuff. That's why we're not practicing law. We're telling you this is the information that we have come up with, and that we're sharing it with you. By all means, if you know something that needs to be added to this, and you can lawfully back it up, we will stand corrected and add it.
Dave said something there at the end, and
well, hang on a minute. Wait a minute. Let's let the lady. Hang on a minute. Let the lady speak up first. Then we'll turn the floor over to you for your question to Dave on that one, and then we'll come back to Dave. Ma'am, the floor is you. And also, too, I'm surprised nobody nailed me. Nobody chewed me out when I said the word person. It's man or woman. We got to pay attention. That word person is a British ruling structure of a word. That's putting you in their court proceedings. If you use that in a court, hey, you gave them the right to drag you in. Go ahead, ma'am.
He's trying to talk, Ed.
This is Melissa.
Hmm?
It's been a while, Ed. Melissa Boda. I actually had a question for you guys on the warrants. In my particular case, and I'm pretty sure Mike School has heard of my case through somebody else. When I looked at the warrant that they gave me about maybe 4 hours or so after they arrested me, I realized that it was not signed by an actual judge. It was actually signed by an attorney, and I was arrested on that. And I spent 4 days in county.
And which county?
Canyon County, Idaho.
Okay. We can get you information on that because I do have that. A warrant has to be signed by a grand jury, and that's all federal. And if a judge signs a warrant, I have that because he's committed fraud, racketeering, and extortion. And a judge just got convicted 5 years in prison for that same thing. I think it was 3 weeks ago.
And then I have another question. This has been driving me nuts. My caseworker, because most of you might know me from the Boda versus the state of Idaho federal court case. It's kind of weird how she has no connection to me, but yet she was able to get a 2-year domestic violence restraining order against me. I've looked through the criteria. Go ahead.
That's the one thing that needs to be copied That's the one thing that needs to be traced back on her bond through the bar of the state. She cannot issue a warrant. She did that. That is federal fraud. No attorney can issue anything on paper on a warrant. They do that. They can not only lose the bar license, but we like to push for the prosecution of a minimum when you're in jail. So we do have the information on this stuff, so we'll try to get it to you. Okay? And you have my email, don't you?
Yes, we've actually been playing phone tag.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's right. Yeah. I mean, I've got a lot of stuff going around me too on it. So, but yeah, but we got to get the information to you. Have you written an affidavit on the facts of the circumstances where you were kidnapped on?
No, I actually am trying to figure out how exactly to write that.
Well,
that's where that email I just sent you needs to be posted on the Oregon Trackers, Ed.
Yeah, I'll get to that in a minute. Anyhow, the one thing that we need to do is get you the information on that. But on the affidavit, you have to write the circumstances of when they kidnapped you. And the reason was on this alleged warrant, all right, that was signed by an attorney, and you're questioning the authority where the attorney got the rights to sign a warrant. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I comprehend what you're trying to say.
Good. Because see, when you start putting that together, then once you have that outline put together, we can critique it with the laws to put in there, and including their administrative rules in the places that needs to be. Okay, right below the paragraph of whatever that statement is, and here's this act. Here's whereas. And the one thing, when attorneys write their instruments, and I do it myself, I always write whereas, especially on their structure, because that's what attorneys always do, because whereas is a standing of, that's the court case, whereas this was a settlement, this was the statement. You know, you're not leaving it open. You're not leaving it open for interpretation form either.
Exactly, and they don't. It's comprehensible, and it's also kind of interesting because when I go into court, they don't like the fact that I'm saying I'm a woman, because it's obvious I'm a woman.
Yeah.
I mean, I look kind of funky as a man, but you know, I've been called worse.
Well, but see, the whole point is that you want to turn this structure so they're on the defensive. Okay? Yeah.
I think
the judge is going to try to tell you. Well, yeah, but see, the one thing is we'll get you the information because the judge likes to say, this is my courtroom and I'm the authority here. Well, we have the administrative rules and the federal law that says if he tries to claim that, that's 6 months in jail. So they don't expect to start reading this stuff. I mean, when I started doing all this stuff, started quoting all these administrative rules and structures in it. Go ahead. Oh, okay. When I started quoting all this stuff, they started panicking. You know, because nobody's ever done it in this manner. You know, I mean, it's like the one thing with a traffic ticket, and I've done this many times in these kangaroo courts, is I put the cop on this witness stand, and I start questioning his authority. And a judge will sit there and tell you, well, you know, he can't answer those questions. He's not an attorney. Well, if he's not an attorney, then who gives him the right to write a citation to try to embezzle funds from me?
See, now you're only leading more questions.
It's
comprehensible. You're leading on to more questions because I've got so many cases, but we can discuss that after the show too.
Okay. But, you know, this is the one thing that when you're putting this stuff together and we start getting these templates up from everybody else that are doing them, we'll put up a section on the page so we can put all this stuff in so people can go in and referring on them. Okay, because see, I mean, not everybody could write their own structure, but you got to take ideas from others that you read and laws and structure like this. Because I've worked this way with many people, that we bounce ideas or bounce cases back and forth as we're working on these things. You know, to see what's going on, because we all have to work together and see where these puzzles come into play in our instruments. You know, and the main thing is, I'll post here, I'll get that here in a minute, Dave, post that up on the sites. Yeah. But on our sites, and I'll put on Revolution News too, the structures of an affidavit with the law. Yes, there is laws on affidavits. If you lie on an affidavit, you could do a year in jail. It's called fraud. You have to be 100% accurate. Go ahead. I didn't hear you, Toast. Well, it's 1 to 5 years. It's up to 5 years. So, and this is a point where we want to get the judges having authority back in their courtrooms instead of these statutes they're going by. You know, because, I mean, if a kid does something or a man or woman does something, you know, they shouldn't go to prison for 3 or 5 or 10 years for some stupid thing. You know, they could just be put on probation, maybe do a couple days in jail if that's the circumstances. Okay, but they shouldn't be locked up for weeks on end. You know, and all they're doing that is 90% of all the jails are run private corporations. And if you do the research on your jail in your community, most of the jails are owned by the judges and attorneys. I mean, our jail in my county didn't get built until 1992. So nobody was arrested for driving without a license, insurance, hunting and fishing. Nobody. And then when that jail got built, and in 1999, they started filling it up. And then 2000, when they got the administrative rule passed by Terry Thompson, my commissioner, that I've got things on him, he passed the administrative rule that says that took away subsistence and hunting and fishing rights and made it so any marine life you have in your refrigerator on your land belongs to the state police for food resources. Says it in the bill. You know, and they can't do that because that's part of the Geneva Convention. You cannot sit there and raid people's homes, you know, for food for troops. So, you know, there's a lot of things that these democracy Democrats think, and they're getting away with it. I mean, our county and state of Oregon, I mean, our state basically, when you go around this state here today, it's no different than Nazi Germany. Neighbors make false police reports, try to justify their employment, their structure. I mean, this is happening all over the place. We know it across the country. But the only way it's going to change is by we the people. If we don't change it, it's not going to change. You know, and that's by our filings, our instruments, making them public. I am happy that the appellate court did say that Facebook is for record, can be used in a court of law. I like that. So when you put your stuff on Facebook, that's still a public notification to them, submissible in court. Go ahead.
Public notice. I said okay. Public notice. And when they put it on Facebook, it's considered public notice.
Right. Anyhow, I want to give the gentleman a chance to come back to his question to you, Dave, and then we'll come back to Melissa here in a minute. But let him get his question, and then we'll bounce back.
Well, so, I just, Dave said something here quite a while back now, and in his finishing of it, I think you stepped on him, and I didn't hear what he said. He might not even remember what it was he was saying then, because I don't
remember part of it.
No. I'd like to ask now, under the present circumstances, wouldn't all of our courts that are run by the bar mafia, is what I call them, pretty much fraudulent from the beginning?
They're actually called pseudo-corporate courts. They're unconstitutional courts.
So that would make them frauds from the beginning.
Correct. But you have to file on the charges on them. And I argue with people all the time. Well, they go to the district attorney. They have to file the charges. They're supposed to do this. Yes, in a perfect world, if they were doing their public servants and their job the way they're supposed to be doing it, but seeing that they're not doing it, you have to file the criminal complaints on them.
And you have to remember that every current court out there is fraudulent. Okay? It's been ruled that way by the Supreme Court. So you need the affidavit, criminal complaint, filed against the judge and the prosecutor for running a bond, commodities, and QSIP. That's C period, U period, S period, I period, P period, QSIP, fraud scheme on you. And once the court writes commodities, they become a bank, not a court. They cannot issue orders. They cannot issue you any fees or anything like that because there's a ruling of the Supreme Court that says the bloodline American is entitled to free access to the courts and other government agencies without paying fees. We have that. Don't we have that case up on the website, Ed?
Yeah, we do. We have it. We have that structure in one in the second and third affidavit. We do that's on the site.
Okay.
So that is there. Go ahead.
If in your affidavit you lied, who's going to prosecute you?
Right.
Well, remember, how long did it take Nixon to get prosecuted?
Sometimes a special prosecutor on him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we need to demand is special prosecutors be assigned.
May I?
Go ahead.
I would just, Jerry just asked the question I wanted to ask. If the court is fraudulent, and you are saying that the criminal complaint has to be written on a judge, I am in the same situation because everything what happened to me in court 4 years ago was absolutely fraudulent, and I lost my home. Okay, fine. I will write a criminal complaint on the judge, on the prosecutor, on everybody. But who will take upon the case?
That's the Department of Justice.
Special prosecutor is a member of this legal gang.
Well, that's right, but it has to go to the Department of Justice, and that's where we, the people, have got to start banding together and signing these affidavits that me and Dave have been stating for a long time, that you have to sign the affidavit to back somebody else up, all right? Because the courts say more than two witnesses.
Yes.
Okay, so you have to write it up. We could endorse it. We could put pressure on their budget.
Excuse me, who is we? What you said, we will...
Me, David, everybody on the phone call, your brother, your sister, your neighbor, your husband.
He's dead.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know that. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I know. But he still votes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't know that. It's been a while since we've talked.
Yeah, well.
But that was cute. That was funny. Yeah. I mean, believe me, and that's a fact, because in 2004, I won the mayor's race, and then the state wanted to charge me $14,000 for the seat to claim undeserved mayor. And then in 2014, I ran for mayor of my town, and I sent out my own ballot as deserved mayor of the town, and you had to get it autographed and notarized and turned into the election department. So it was lawful legal election, and they panicked on that, and they were still trying to tell me that nobody voted for me, when I know for a fact people did autograph it and send it in, but they're covering it up. So, I mean, I know how crooked it is, but when we start standing up together, remember, it's called We the People. And the other point is knowing your standing when you're going into court. That's the biggest thing.
Trust me, when the Department of Justice starts getting affidavits of truth in by the hundreds, they're going to start taking note as to what their oath of office was.
But if you, the court, the judge, did not give you a day in court because judge does not believe that I'm a wife of my own husband.
I had a judge throw a case out of mine. Gave me an order, and I sent him a little thing back. I do not accept your contract offer.
Oh.
And he sent me a letter back saying, you have to be stopped. Why? Because I knew what he was up to.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. You can go after these men in that fashion, too.
And since he put it in writing as a threat to me, I have to be stopped? Excuse me, I am one of we the people, men and women of this nation, who is the government. Don't tell me I have to be stopped.
You know, and that is the point, is a standing, but an affidavit, too, because, see, the one thing is that men and women are slowly realizing, especially with immigration, on the ones that are in here participating, following through with their obligations, we have to back them up for their bloodline, because if we don't back them up, there ain't no bloodline to have security on this soil. This is why they've been working to eliminate the lawful bloodline Americans, so this way we have no standing claiming our soil. And this is the frustration that I deal with a lot of other people, is like you have to file in this manner. And I always hear, well, all of a sudden they got an attorney. Well, if you got an attorney, don't call me. Okay? Because if you want to work with the devil, go play in the devil's game. Okay? But I've been successful on a lot of things, stopped a lot of things, but it does take efforts of people around you. Now, I just put up on the Facebook Dave's deal that he just asked me to put up. I just put up the information on the power of an affidavit. Okay, and when you do an affidavit, you have witnesses sign it. Because, see, when they think that there's only 2 signatures on something, they're only dealing with 2 or 3 people. But let's say if there's 10, 20, or even 100 on an affidavit supporting it, they know that they could be questioned and brought in over it. And so this is what we've got to get our system back up to track on this, and that's going to come strictly between us doing it. Because if we don't do it, nobody else is going to do it. Does that make sense? Because remember, these people do not care about you. They do not even care. Most of them don't even care about their own children. That's the saddest part. They don't even care about their own bloodline. I have even witnessed this myself. You know? So, you know, and I know a lot of stories on it, too. You know, so it's just one of those things.
Rod Class has a lot of information on this stuff on his AIB radio show that you can go in and look at too as well. You can also Google, let's see, I'm never going to think of the name of this one. I want it. Styles manual of your state. And they have court cases that'll back up what you're saying.
Okay, but like I said, the main thing I preach to everybody all the time. You know, we have our affidavits up there. We've got them filed with Congress. Sign them or autograph them. That means if you're lawful, you sign, you autograph. If you're legal, you sign. Okay, it still has meaning, but it has to be in numbers because we have to do it. Nobody's going to do it for us. You know, we all know that one. And I like Ken's little statement. He's crazy, huh? So, but anyhow, you know, it is coming down to the point that if we don't start doing it, paying attention, okay, we can't blame our forefathers and our mother and fathers who didn't give a darn. I mean, I definitely know. I got to see this one. It says that the other point that we put up was it has already been overthrown. I'd like to see that one because we just served that one on the one I just posted on the investigation of 42. So we'll check into that one. So, but anyhow, I haven't seen it thrown on the West Coast here, so that's beside the point. What is this something now? My computer's freezing up.
Okay, another point I want to bring in here, right? If you write an affidavit and you later discover in the affidavit there's a misstatement, you need to notify the people notice of error, an addendum, notice of error, and make the correction. That way they can't hold you accountable.
Yeah, you want to correct the record all the time if you see something. And when you do it, too, when you correct it afterwards, make sure it goes registered certified mail. And never put anything verbally on record because it's hearsay. Inadmissible.
Well, I have a little point to bring up on that certified mail, Ed.
Go ahead.
Some courts are now demanding that they will not accept certified mail. You have to bring it to the court and file it yourself.
Well, for the people with disability, that goes against the Disability Act.
They don't care, Ed.
Well, I know that, but if mine does it to me, they're going to have one hell of a fight on that, and they know it. So, you know, but that's the one thing. See, when we get a court that is doing this, we need to know it so we can make it publicly known, and so we can go after the court and make a change. You know, I mean, I get really disturbed when I see people going to courtrooms. They don't know what's really going on, and people want to speak, and they don't know what they're speaking.
The Citizens with Disabilities Act is where you want to file that objection on the court for filing that stuff up.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead. Okay. So, but no, I got where we're at here. But see, also too, it takes all of us working together on this. It's not going to change overnight. And yes, I know that we don't have a lot of courts out there honoring their oath of servitude. Okay, but I mean, when I go file my stuff, you know, locally, if I go to the clerk, I don't have an issue anymore. When I go up to the Oregon State Secretary of State, I file stuff, I don't have an issue anymore. Because they just got to the point where I started filing on them, and they knew that if the filing would have went through, they would be unemployable. So, and this is true. It is a fact. But it's knowing when you go in and knowing what you're talking about and knowing when you talk to these servants. I mean, I went into the Secretary of State a while back ago, was filing an instrument, and they told me they couldn't accept it. They wouldn't file it. So I went over to the Secretary's office myself. Oh, what do you know? It got filed. Okay, so the other employees are going to bounce you around because they're terrified. Because they're realizing that they don't have any power when it really comes down to it. And the Supreme Court and our Constitution says the power lays in our hands. And that includes partly citizens. And the Supreme Court even ruled that citizens have to pay taxes and follow, but they still have rights. Go ahead. Were you going to speak up? Okay. So, but it's knowing the court cases, knowing how to discuss them when you get in there. Do not get into personal things. Always speak of the facts.
Don't volunteer things.
Yes, absolutely.
Answer the question, but
ahead,
nothing further.
Yeah, go ahead. There's another guy who wanted to speak up. Let him go.
Now you said Facebook is accepted. What about email?
Yes, if you could copy your email, yes it is, because it's a record that's going through. 1998, Clinton was the one who did the structure on email and faxes, so it's legal.
Yeah, because if you threaten somebody through email, you can be prosecuted, so. Okay.
And it's the same on both sides. You know, it's like I just got off the phone with a public servant today. We were on the phone for a while, and I got into it too with Clinton's March 3rd, 1997, signing Social Security over to the Queen of England.
That's
embezzlement. You can't do that.
That's embezzlement.
Mm-hmm.
The corporate taxes you pay through Social Security is one thing, but the people who pay their portion is public funds, and it goes to an insurance.
And it's only for lawful bloodline Americans as it is written.
Thank you.
And I've done the research on this myself because I've been fighting Social Security for years. Social Security cut me off recently, so I'm still trying to figure out how to pay a couple bills. You know, but I mean, I'm battling different things myself on it, and I know why they did it, because I speak out too much. Okay? And
hey, Ed, if I may.
Go ahead.
Hey, Ed, this is Rance.
Yeah, good talking to you, Rance. The floor is yours.
I got a, I don't know if it's a suggestion or a comment, however you want to take it. But if you guys got paperwork that you want to go into the courtroom, here's an idea. Take it to the post office, have the postmaster stamp it first, that in the envelope, and it's guaranteed to go through the court.
That's true, too.
Good point. Thank you.
Now,
I just thought I'd throw that out there.
That for people.
If you have paperwork that you want to go into a courtroom or into the court, take it into the post office and have the postmaster stamp it with their seal, the paperwork and the envelope. They cannot refuse it in the courtroom.
Because that's called commerce. What does a judge deal with? Commerce. That's your courts. They're on trustee and commerce structure. And so as we're figuring all this stuff out, all of us, and we're all putting all this stuff together, they're freaking out because we're unraveling their own metrics around them. You know, I mean, I've been impressed in the last 5 weeks. 3 judges have been convicted, one for 5 years, one for 15, and the other one's doing 28 years. 17 DH workers now have been convicted. 7 just out of Austin, Texas. So it is working. People are filing and doing this structure. Okay, but it takes it because you have to go in with numbers. And if you don't have numbers, have enough signatures on your information. Because anybody could sign an affidavit as a witness because they're liable just as the man or woman who wrote it. So I mean, you want to make sure
that you do not necessarily need a notary public to sign your document. You can do it in your blood signature, your thumbprint, right thumbprint on the document.
Yeah, it does help for their structure to have a notary done, because then that way they can't argue their own structure.
But I'm just saying you can do both.
That's true. No, I'm not disagreeing with you, Dave. I was bringing up the other point.
Trust me, they do not like blood signatures.
No, because they can't alter that one.
That's right.
Because your thumbprint, and if you don't have a thumb, your fingerprints are all individually yours. Nobody else has the same.
People who are on diabetes do testing every morning, afternoon, and evening, or however many times you do it. You're automatically pricking your finger, so don't waste the blood on that fingertip. On a document.
Very good point. But see, there are solutions, and the solutions are going to come by us in numbers. And I know for a fact, because I've put in instruments for others, that the case was thrown out, or when they got to the courtroom and their name was not on the charts, they would ask, well, wasn't I supposed to be here? Something? We don't know who you are. I mean, it's like, the one thing that is frustrating me that's still going on with the tribes down there, these guys ain't filing the criminal charges on these guys with their dogs. Because remember, what is that called? Title 7, 136, Section D, we are all animals. That's cruelty to animals. So that's the way you have to file it, cruelty to animals. These are the things that is putting it together and realizing how to put something together and focus it together so it can, it makes the point. And it comes through, and the affidavits do speak loudly. I mean, because when I filed a couple affidavits that me and Dave filed, we filed on Boehner, and after we filed on him, what is it, 7 days, he decided to resign because we charged him with a list of crimes in an affidavit.
Yeah, well, he didn't like piracy. We got him on the Piracy Act, and boy, he was going in within, like you said, 2 3 days.
7 days after he got it, because we filed piracy. And remember the Piracy Act. You can use it. It still exists today. This is where people don't realize this structure. It does exist. It does work.
And anytime the court changes your paperwork, that's piracy. You can charge them with piracy immediately.
Fraud.
And fraud,
extortion.
Yes. They put your name from lowercase to all uppercase. That is identity theft.
Yep.
And that is piracy.
That is a very fact. And remember, identity theft. That implies when they take fingerprints from you. That implies when you go to jail, they ask you for your Social Security number. By federal law, you're not to use your Social Security number for identification, especially in court, and it says it in your Social Security pamphlet. But that's the problem. People don't read the structures of stuff they get. Most people, they get something, they look at it, and they just throw it away, and it ain't going to bother me. It's like, respond to it, make it out, and if they try to come after you, you're going to press these charges, and you write the charges in your affidavit. I put the power of the structure in an affidavit. 5 points of an affidavit must contain the following. A matter must be expressed to be resolved. Commerce is truth and sovereignty. In commerce, truth is sovereignty. You get that? Truth is expressed in the form of an affidavit. Truth is. An unrebutted affidavit stands as truth in commerce. Number 5, an unrebutted affidavit becomes judgment in commerce. And then if you click what I put up, it has all the other court cases in it. There's the structure what they have to go by on an affidavit. You know, I've had people that says, oh, I want to put this in my affidavit, the structure they have to go by. You don't put that into the structure they have to go by an affidavit until you're going into appellate court. And I don't like that one, you know, going to that type of structure. But you want to take it to the Supreme Court. Superior Court, I mean. Not Supreme, Superior. There's a difference. Supreme is the British, Superior is our courts. So it is, I mean, all this research that Dave and I do, it opens our eyes up. When we talk to people, we get pieces that all of a sudden the light goes off that we need to add here and there. I mean, right now, I'm getting ready to put my affidavit out on Social Security. When I get it finished, I will be publicizing it. Okay? Not only that, there's cases in Social Security where people have sued Social Security board members and won, hands down. And I've got that partly in my affidavit. But I don't like to give them all the ammunition now. I like to give them a surprise. My affidavit, I don't know, it's probably 60 pages. But I've got everything in it, what a public servant, a cop does, his oath, the federal laws when the top cop takes his position, when he has to go by, compared to the contracts that he might sign with the mayor or city council, and the contracts he has signed outside of his oath of office. That's a federal crime, and it's in their structure. So when we put the stuff, when you or I or whatever, we put the stuff together, we get it out there, and people are looking at it. Remember, use the stuff, and I agree with some people say that, you know, I don't like templates. Okay, that's fair. But we're putting it out in a structure. I don't really consider it really a template. I call it a template. But you have to write your affidavit, and you have to put the structures of what's out there in where it belongs in your letter. You put your facts up, then you put their structure in. And that's the way I've always done my documents in the last few years. And every time I've done it, I haven't had an issue on it.
Yeah, most people don't comprehend the fact that the right to travel ruling by the United States Supreme Court lists dozens of cases in their ruling that you can also use in other documents. So you need to research the right to travel ruling by the Supreme Court. They cannot legislate against a right. In other words, they can't charge you fees, duties, licenses, and all this other crap they're pulling on us.
And I do have that in my affidavit on the superior courts when they want to charge you to go to court. Lawful Americans do not have to pay court fees.
May I?
Go ahead.
Oh, dang, if the Supreme Court had opinioned that you didn't have a right to travel, would that mean you didn't?
No, it's an opinion.
Well, that's what Supreme Court decisions are, aren't they? Just opinions?
No, not all of them. You have to read the case, and if it says opinion, if it doesn't say opinion, that's their fact.
Okay, so let's say they had decided that you didn't have a right to travel. Would you not have a right to travel?
No, because it violates the Constitution, and not only that, you could type in Janet Reno's rights to travel. Former Janet Reno, you know, the Clinton BS.
Yeah.
She actually has a structure in an affidavit on the internet that she had to put in Congress on the rights to travel when she was, what was she? Wasn't she part of the Department of Justice? Yeah.
She was the Attorney General.
That's right. And she had to write a structure of that to Congress, and it's on the internet.
Well, yeah, but what I'm trying to say is there's no way that we could enforce our right to travel if the Supreme Court said we didn't have one?
Well, they didn't say that. I said we have the right to travel. It is
Well, yeah,
right,
but I don't
not
want to give them the authority to make that determination.
They've made a
court case
determination for years, and the last one they just made a determination on that was, I think it was May 8th, 2015, and they came out and said that every man and woman and child has a right to travel without being impeded, and that is in that Supreme Court decision.
Did they quote Hale versus Hinkle on that?
Yes, they did, actually.
There you go.
Well, when they do that, do they say have a right to travel? I've heard that there is a case that says you have a right to travel with the accepted modes of transportation of the day on the highways in common. Is that anyone?
Well, even common. Well, you think about one thing. What powers your vehicle? And I'm going to use that term even though I don't like to use it, but I'll get to the reason why I'm saying that. What powers your vehicle? It's called horsepower, right?
Yeah.
So when you're in your vehicle and it's closed doors, couldn't that be considered a covered wagon?
Yeah.
You got a horse team pulling your covered wagon. Can I help you, sir?
Yeah.
And this is filed. David and I have filed. Go ahead.
And I know are you guys familiar with the Colorado calls?
Oh yeah, I've been on the Colorado calls.
Well,
yeah.
It was brought up the other day that, and I'm sure you guys know this, that when the officer turns on his lights, there has to be an emergency.
Yes, life and death.
The woman was saying that if the officer, follows behind you, then apparently he's trying to tell you he's got emergency he needs to notify you of. So she said, so when he walks up to your window, you say, is there an emergency that I can help you with?
Correct.
And then when he says no, then you go, well then, why? What are you doing here? And then he says, I want to see your
driver's license or registration. Could you quote me the law that says that? I don't answer questions.
Yeah, that's what she was saying. That. And that's the end of that. That's your private paperwork, and unless he has a warrant for it, yeah, right, okay.
At that point in time, I address the officer like this: Sir, my fee schedule is $100,000 an hour with a minimum 4 hours. Are you planning on arresting me?
Or kidnapping me?
Yeah.
Now remember, if they tow your vehicle, you can still charge the officer with grand theft auto.
Yeah.
The officer cannot be the injured party. Why? Because he's an employee of the corporation and or state.
It's that simple.
And so when he issues you a ticket, say he goes that far, you take it down to the treasury of the state and you cash it in.
He wrote you a check, primarily, and they want you to pay for it. And the one thing I would like to put a blessing out for the elected and public servants and the sheriffs who are actually honoring their constitutional oath and not arresting people in their counties for traveling without license and insurance. So I really would like to thank you on that. I know it's behind closed doors of what's going on. It needs to stay behind closed doors, but that's where the community needs to pay attention in the community who's honorable and who's not. And that is your responsibility personally to get the dishonest ones out. You can't go to the district attorney or this chief and whine. And if you have a criminal complaint against a public servant, the criminal, you write first the affidavit of truth, criminal parentheses complaint. Because you're not making a complaint, because a complaint means all you're doing is whining when it really comes down to it. I'm complaining.
Yeah.
And that's what it really means, folks. So you can go ahead.
When the other gentleman said that you take it down and cash it in, do you mean They know. Did you literally mean you take it down and say, "I want cash for this," and how much are they worth?
Yes. Under your Secretary of Treasury, State Secretary of Treasury's office, and cash it in.
The man wrote me a check, and I'm here to redeem it.
Then the officer of the court's responsible to pay the Treasury.
Okay.
And I'll get that information up eventually because we've quoted it in one of our instruments, and I have that all that stuff, even the Treasury numbers to do that somewhere. And
on that document I just sent you on the constitutional criminal complaint, I added parentheses around complaint.
Right, I know.
And I added
245
to the investigation mandated.
Okay, I'll do that one in a minute. But anyhow, this is the point that it's putting it together. And when we do this talk call every week, bring people, when you got something to speak up, bring it in. Let's hammer it out. But the main focus is that you have to make an affidavit of fact. And you have to put your remedy in there. Or somebody else told me there was another word I should use instead of remedy, and I wish I could remember it off the top of my head, but I can't.
Restitution,
it means remedy.
Maybe?
Go ahead.
Restitution, maybe?
No. It's another word of remedy, but it's a terminology. When I was reading it, I was shocked because it means that there's no ifs, ands, or buts out of not paying it.
Huh.
So
yeah, is it release?
Huh?
Is it release?
No, it's redender or something like that. Redender.
Redemption?
No, it doesn't have any of that. It's redender. It's like redender.
Not like recourse.
I'm trying to remember. No, it's not recourse. It's redender. And it's the other terminology for remedy, but it means that if it's not taken care of, then that way you can go after their assets.
So, Ed, I got a
read
question.
This thing, and I put it in one of my instruments, but that's when I was writing it when my computer went off on me. I love it when my computer does that on its own. So, but I mean, the whole point is that we're all working together. Now, the lady over in New York City on that structure, like I said, I'm sorry to hear about that one, but putting it up, because I mean, I tell everybody, put it in an affidavit, write the story up. You know, you have to file it to become record. And that's the point. If you don't file it to become record, it does not exist. You know, and I talked to a lot of attorneys over the years, and it's like, file it for record. You have to make sure it goes in the record. If it's not in record, it becomes hearsay. Remember, the other point is I put up many times, and I'll do that again as soon as I find it. District attorneys are hearsay witnesses. If there's no injured party, there's no property damage, they cannot be a witness to anybody. Somebody can sign a power of authority to them to be a witness only in property or personal damage or, you know, when it comes down to personal injury. Otherwise, they cannot represent anyone in a courtroom. Plus, I've been putting up the case with John F. Kennedy when an attorney went after him because this is why we're putting up the Foreign Administration Registration Act, because that case was wonderful because he went after John F. Kennedy because he was not registered with the Foreign Administration Registration Act, because all public servants have to be besides immigrants. Okay, and if they're not registered, that becomes seriously, that could even be deportation.
Are you looking for the word remedy?
No, let me finish. Hold on a second, Dave. So with that point, with that case, it says in that case specifically that a lawyer or an attorney can only represent a corporation. That's why they lost in the Supreme Court against John F. Kennedy. Of course, he registered after that because he had to, but the bottom line is he didn't until that came up, and the court clearly stated that an attorney could only represent a non-fictional corporation. Go ahead, Dave.
Are you looking for the word remedium extraordinarium?
No, it's redender or something like that. I'll get it and I'll figure it out here.
Well, I'm looking at remedy in Black's Law Dictionary right now.
No, it's not Black Law Dictionary. I think it came from Bouvier.
Oh, Bouvier? Well, usually
So I've got to double check. I open my mouth, but it'll show up. It'll come up here shortly. We'll figure it out.
I think it is render.
Render?
Yes.
I think it's RENEDER is what I think it is. Right. And I think you are correct. Render.
Because in remedy, they don't refer to that.
No, I know that.
There's a REMEDIAL action. Remedial. That's the only thing they have under remedy in Black's Law.
Yeah, but see, like I said, Black Law Dictionary originally was written as a joke, and I can't believe people took it seriously.
Well, you got to remember they're on their 10th version now. Every time they want to change the meaning of a word, they write a new version.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes it a joke.
You know.
So why are the words used in Black's Law not part of Webster?
Well, because attorneys like that. They couldn't rob, rape, and pillage us if they didn't.
So if you deliberately withhold information to cause someone to act to their detriment, that's a definition of fraud.
Mm-hmm. Conspiracy, too. More than one.
Rico.
2 people involved in conspiracy, and that could even be a judge and an attorney.
Right, Rico.
And for those who don't realize, on their birth certificate, look at it, it's a banknote. And it's written, and we've got this too, the page 400, December 13th, 1929, the bank record fraud. But when it was done, March 9th, 1933, FDR put $630,000 on each birth certificate. Now, that $630,000 is supposed to be what was turned in gold and silver, and what they're supposed to pay back to the lawful bloodline Americans on the debt. Now, and I know this for a fact because I've been up at the Capitol and I've had public arguments with public servants over this, and they're going, well, we create all these jobs, we do all this stuff, we give the money back to you in jobs. What the hell? I don't want to be a slave. And if I want a job, I'll get a job. I'm not embarrassed or ashamed to work. But if I had, and this is where people say, oh, you don't have entitlement. Lawful bloodline American lawfully, and then by the Supreme Court, does have entitlement. We do have entitlement being a lawful bloodline American.
A bond issued in your name is your bond.
Mm-hmm.
It does not belong to them to use.
It's yours. And if they issue it to somebody that's not lawful in this country, whoever issued is the liable party because that's the person who received it. They didn't know any better.
Oh, gee, that would be the Federal Reserve.
Not only that, copyright your name.
Right.
That comes under copyright law. Yeah, 500 people might have the same name and all filed, but you have different birth dates, different circumstances. There are ways, more than one way to skin a cat when it comes down to it. And I want to read this so you people on disability too can get this one. Let me get back down here. If a public identity denies or otherwise qualifies an individual meaningful access to its services, programs, and activities solely by reason of his or her disability, that the individual may have an ADA claim against the public identity, city, county, state, whatever. And I'll post this up for people on disability like myself. And then I've got the other point where they say if you don't exhaust all your administrative rules, you cannot do this, you cannot do that. Okay, well, I've been the man that's exhausted my administrative remedies. I even got the videos with me, senators, and a whole bunch of stuff. I got a few of those up on video on YouTube. But there's a lot more that goes along with that. These men and women, especially senators and congressmen and House representatives, truly do know what they're screwing you over. And they're very quick. They go through training in their corporation to try to convince you out of it. And they've been trying to do that for me for some time, and I ain't buying it, and that's where my affidavit is going, because now I can tie Social Security, what they call intergovernment agency agreements, conspiring with the local government, trying to take me out, and I can prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt now. And I was blessed, because they tried to put me in federal prison in 2006. Department of Justice came back in writing, said the Democratic Party had a personal vendetta out for me. And this has been seriously going on for 10 years, and I know most of these people are still amazed I'm alive. You know, and I've had that brought to my attention by somebody the other day. You know, hadn't seen me for a while, and I ran into them at the store the other day, and it was a public servant. They looked at me, and they were walking by me, and they were like, "You're still alive?" It was like, what do you think? You know, I mean, you know, these people will conspire against you, including their family members will do it. So remember, a public servant, I don't care how sweet they are, how nice they are to you, they're sucking you in. Stay strictly 100% business with them. They are not your friends, nor will they ever be your friends. I have personally witnessed too many public and elected servants turn on their own families on things so that way they got a bill through or what they wanted in their compensation packages. And it's existing, and most of you guys have seen it yourself, witnessed it yourself, you know, and that's the whole point is, you know, filing. It's like I've been through a number of cases. You got to start autographing. It's like Dave and I, when we filed the cases, you know, that we have on the site. We've even got the structure of lawful and legal we gave to Scalia before he was murdered. You don't accidentally suffocate with a pillow over your face.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's sort of an impossibility.
Well, they didn't waste any time getting him cremated so they could destroy the evidence of suffocation by a pillow.
Well, yeah, they cremated his body the same day. That's the point. People don't read this stuff or go through it. Yeah, he was cremated right off the bat.
Yes, he was.
So, like the affidavits we and Dave have, you could autograph what we have, send it and turn it in. If they get 150 of the same thing with different people autographing it, oh my God, it starts picking. Because remember, you've been around elections most of your life. You watch it. They go by popular vote, popular demand. That becomes a popular demand. They're going to support it. And the only way that happens is by numbers. And I have witnessed those things literally change when I was up in the Oregon State Capitol walking the floors. Because for years, I was the guy that was always sitting in the hallway behind everybody watching what's going on. You know, I didn't always get involved. For years, I didn't even speak out. I just watched what was going on. I wanted to see how it participates. You know, I've heard the stories. I've read books on a few things, what's happened. But I was able to sit there and watch it and for my own eyes, especially lobbying. You know, when I put one of my Senate bills in that Gary put in for me, was putting back our subsistence and hunting and fishing rights. So then they went after me and filed ethics complaints on me. That didn't work. Then they filed on me because I didn't report any income or structures of how I was paying for all the bills and stuff like most lobbyists do. I never paid anybody up there for anything. You know, when I was traveling, I was, you know, blessed in a lot of regards. You know, and they got pissed off. So then the state wanted to fine me the Ethics Commission wanted to fine me $75 because my filing of my structure was not in, and you didn't have to file if you didn't get any donations over $4,500, I think it was at the time. And so because I didn't file and stuff, so they tried to come after me. So I filed a letter with the director of the agency. Then I filed it with the House and Senate committee over him. And within 7 days after that, he resigned and moved to Arizona, which I think he still is the head of the Ethics Committee for Arizona. So they shuffle around. They'll go from state to state because nobody in that state knows them. They don't do the research on people when they come to their state, especially elected and public servants. And even immigration, if you read the federal laws on immigration, the community has to accept the man or woman coming into that community. If the people don't want that man or woman in the community, they don't have a right to be in this country. We are not a democracy. No way are we a democracy. There's no way in the Constitution, and there is no structure until realistically, when FDR was elected, it started calling democracy. And if you really look back in history, it wasn't until after the Civil War when the Democratic Party formed and the Republican Party formed. It never was in existence prior to the Civil War. Everybody just argued.
Constitutionality between the Republican and Democratic Party. There is none.
Yeah, and quit pointing the finger at one or the other parties. Look at the man and woman, what they're doing. Yes, Hillary Clinton and George Bush were one of the biggest cocaine runners in the 1980s. Yes, for a fact, the CIA was making synthetic cocaine and putting it on the street. That's a fact.
Fact. They're putting,
and I know it. I lived it.
In fact, the CIA is putting drugs in the corpses of our dead soldiers and shipping them back home and then opening them up and taking the drugs out of them.
And then they store them in a warehouse with cadavers right now. They got a warehouse with, I think it's like 11 or 12,000 veterans that came back from the last few wars that they went over, and they're not wars. They're going over fighting for oil and structure. I mean, everybody got this kick. We got to get Gaddafi out of there. If you actually read Gaddafi's structure, why our country, the Democrats, went after him, if you were a bloodline in Gaddafi's country, fact, type it up, look it up. You paid no hospital bills. You paid no electricity bills. When you got married, they gave you $50,000 to purchase land in a home for you and your spouse. Not only that, everybody got a check every other month at 0.00014 of a penny on the oil sold. And you know how many billions of gallons they were selling of oil? So they didn't like it because their country was becoming extremely wealthy without being a democracy.
And
there's a so-called comedy.
They're stealing from us, Ed.
Go ahead.
Say, where's our dividend checks for the money for the oil they're stealing from us?
Well, I know that's the other point, because technically the oil that was supposed to be coming off the Dakota's plains, technically in the contract that Reagan signed, they were supposed to be pumping it right out there, and our gas is supposed to be 88 cents a gallon right now. But when the Democrats took over, and everybody's been threatened. I mean, come on. Bernie Sanders finally came out and said how he was threatened by Hillary Clinton if he would not back out of the race. These people are wicked. Go ahead.
Said that's enough to jail her making threats against the United States senator.
Well, I know that, but see, this is the point, like everybody's saying, who's going to enforce it? Well, people, do you think everybody supported Bernie on that, even the senators? No. Do you remember what happened to, what was his name, Perot? When he was running against Bush, Now, he finally came out and stated, because he was told if he didn't stop running, his bloodline would be erased off the face of the earth. And that came from the Bush family. That is on record. Look it up. Finally came out years later.
Well, nice. Get that and post it on the web.
Well, eventually, right now, I still got 20 things I'm trying to get out right now.
I know.
I know you know. Yeah, I'm buried with stuff right now. Go ahead.
Do you have any idea why they're so insistent on Hillary being president? I mean, it don't matter. Or
you really want to know the truth?
Yeah.
They want to put the crown of England here. See, they've been trying to say we're a U.S. colony, and I've been fighting this with many, many men and women, even through their own state legislators, where I've even proven we're not a British colony. We never have been. And then they're saying, well, the original 13 colonies was part of the Colony Foundation from England. They actually called the New America back there in the 13 colonies. And they wanted to get away from England. Because back then, if you didn't go by the Roman Catholic Church, you were beheaded. And until George Washington until King George went back in 1779, from 1710 was the first book burning in England, and the book that they burned was the Bible, King James Bible. Until 1779, it was literally a beheading offense if that was found in your property. There was no court. They found that Bible, they cut your head off right there.
Very cool.
Okay, look it up. It's real. It's on the history books now. You know, and what was that? The Roman Catholic Church. And if you think back in the Roman Catholic Church with the whole structure, then they do crucifixions on men, women, and children. You know, if you didn't convert to them, that you were going to be killed, and that's why we got the guillotines now, where they're trying to shove the Muslim religion. The state of Illinois, right now, and I just posted it up around, and I got to make some more calls, and I got some people over there I got to deal with. The state of Illinois is setting up a Muslim council to advise the legislation of Illinois on Sharia law. This is a fact. This is real. It's happening right now today.
So, what is Hillary a descendant of the crown?
Yes, she is.
Okay.
So was Bill. Both their families came from England. You know, I don't even know. I think it was proven that Hillary wasn't even born here. She was born in England. But before I say any further, I want to have factual information because I got that third and fourth hand, and I'm still waiting for it to see if it's true or not.
So they may have actually had an arranged marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be darned. I don't want to hear anymore. I'm getting off this call.
Yeah, and if you look at their history together, I mean, most people realize back in Watergate, Hillary Clinton was the attorney. That's why she was disbarred. The committee found her racketeering, fraud, and extortion, and they filed treason charges on her. And then when Ford got elected, he gave everybody a free pass, including Nixon. Which
Are you familiar with Kathy O'Brien's Transformation of America?
I've heard a little bit about that. I'm not totally familiar. I haven't had a chance to get back to it. Somebody else was wanting me to get into it.
Yeah, she claims, and it sounds it sounds like that. It's certainly what happened. That they have presidential models. That NASA has. He said she was a presidential model, and what they did was brainwashed her into. And it made me think of it when you mentioned Ford. That if you knew the key word, you could activate her, and she'd do anything you wanted done. And then when you deactivated her, she wouldn't remember anything she had done.
And sadly enough, we got people like that walking around you right now in town. You know, a lot of people have been so programmed, it's scary. And you talk to people, all of you talk to people when you see them, dazing off, especially on a serious conversation, and then all of a sudden, they'll come up and speak of things that you're going, never even, what are you talking about? I mean, we've got a lot of this. It's like the attention deficit disorder fraud. And I know that was a fraud, 70 to 72. I was one of the guinea pigs. Not only that, the director who died when he invented this structure, he died a couple years ago. He came out on his deathbed in the affidavit and wrote the whole truth about it. You can type that in, ADHD fraud. So they got all the kids on Ritalin and all these structures, and Ritalin is the #1 brain cell killer.
God.
And you look at the chemicals in your, see, I mean, 99% of the stuff they try to put me on, I won't take it. I will take, you know, I do take the opium, like morphine, and that when not morphine, excuse me, that shit is deadly. They put me on that for a while, and boy, that was a weird experience. I quit that cold turkey, and the doctor flipped out on me going, you're supposed to call me, you're supposed to do this. I said, #1, if you look at my affidavit you had, it says I own my body, you don't, #1. And #2, when I had that experience I had to quit cold turkey, and I was done with it. So, there was no part of that one. But, you know, like Vicodin, codeine I don't like because that screws you up. That makes you a little paranoid about things around you. But Vicodin and Percocet never had an issue, and it takes the edge off. Well, I've got serious spinal conditions. And literally my head has been screwed on twice. My head is held on with screws. My neck is screwed together. And so instead of going through coral cages or some of the other experiments they were doing at the time, I went with the traditional titanium plate, and they put cadaver bone in my neck for the places they had to cut out from the discs and stuff. So it was put together with titanium and cadaver bone.
What'd you have, a car accident or something?
No, I got my neck broken in a bar fight. I was a bouncer. And if I'd known the guy screwed these 5 men on a drug deal, I would have let him kick his ass. But, no, it was on a bad drug deal, and they were fighting right on the property of the bar. So my job is to make sure those things like that don't happen so the bar owner can't be sued. So I got my head caved in with a pipe 5 to 7 times. Was the reports that everybody gave that were the witnesses. I didn't even feel it until the next morning. And how I felt it the next morning for 8 hours, I couldn't move from the neck down. So
have you ever heard of Charles Tart's research? He calls it a consensus trance.
I don't think I've heard of that. What is that basically?
Well, he just come to the conclusion from his it's like Eric Fromm's research in his book Sane Society, where he demonstrates that an entire society can be insane and not know it because they all enable one another's insanity. And he was talking about our society, you know. I mean, he wasn't talking about a village in Africa. And Charles Tart, I imagine that it comes from, it begins with our compulsory schooling.
Oh, yes, it does do that with the brainwashing at the school. And the reason why they started these Head Start programs are no different than Adolf Hitler's Head Start programs, no different, because most kids didn't go to school until the 1st grade. Some of them, realistically, in the 60s and some in the 70s didn't go until the 3rd grade, because I remember that, you know. And so, yeah, no, the schools are one of the worst mind controls. Teachers are the worst today because they're so programmed, and they don't do research on real history and stuff. Some of them do. And what disturbs me, the ones that the teachers are really trying to do their employment, and I'm in public servants for us all, they get harassed by administration if they don't go by a certain program, like, what is that called, that one program? Bush put it in, Common Core.
Yeah.
That Bush started and Clinton put it in. You know, that's like saying that Clinton didn't do NAFTA. George Bush started it, Clinton signed it in law, or administrative rules. And remember, folks, North America, Canada might be in North America, but it is not part of the United States for we, the people of America, at all. Canada is still owned and run by the British government. Go ahead.
I say Canada is a subcorporation of the United States.
That's right. It's just a subcorporation. And Canada is where they do the research and the filings on your birth certificate bonds. And they do it. That's when you go to court and they use your Social Security number, they bill it off of your birth certificate bond too for the judge's retirement plan as well. They get triple paid. I mean, they're really using these bonds and structure on their benefit, as we all know. Now it's getting to the point claiming them, and so that way they cannot take it over. Now, Social Security is a private contract, not a government agency. And that's part of the thing that pissed off Social Security when I filed my instrument with them 5 months ago. So I know backing me why they're doing the structure, because I know more about the inside of that department than most of them do, because they never read the books. You know, I mean, that's the point. You read their structure, their administration rules. You use their ammunition against them. You know, a lot of people say, oh, don't do that. Well, that's your right to make that decision, not a choice, because a choice is a word that didn't really come out until the late 80s and pushed around in the 90s in the school and the TV media, especially on Disney Channel. How many people are over 40, 45, 50? Ever heard anybody growing up and hearing that? A chance. Or choice, I mean. Didn't happen. You know? I mean, there's a lot of things growing up in the 70s and 80s that a lot of people don't remember what was really going on. You know? I mean, I was blessed because, I used to pay attention going to the meetings. I used to go to the meetings as a kid. I even worked on 2 of Jerry Brown's campaigns when he was running for governor and state attorney general in the 70s. You know, I mean, these people do not care. I mean, when they are allowing federal prisons and jail to vote, now they're talking about these 8 million people overseas to vote. Those are not Americans. All right? Part of that is Puerto Rico? Puerto Rico is part of the United States Corporation, but not part of We the People. Never has been. Virgin Islands? Never has been. But if they can convince you to believe it, go ahead.
They are holding territories belonging to the corporate United States.
Mm-hmm.
But the indigenous inhabitants there then would be being held hostage in a kind of a concentration camp sort of a thing?
Oh, yeah, they're doing that. That's why in Puerto Rico, all the drug companies moved over there because they could do drugs without any permits or anything. And they could filter all their money through Puerto Rico to banks off the island, because Puerto Rico does not do federal income tax. Not for business and corporations.
That's interesting, Ed, because the IRS are operating out of Puerto Rico under French law.
That's right. And that was the other point I'm going to get to, too, what we're going to get to. Because a lot of these courtrooms are running under French law. Bank of the West, owned by the French. Bank of America was owned by the Saudis. I heard they sold out again, so I don't know who they sold to. You know, it's knowing who your bank is. And by the way, type in on YouTube. Don't use your Social Security to open up a checking account. You don't need to. There's no administrative rule or law that even says that. They do that because then once you register your Social Security, your bank is working off of your interest off of your birth certificate bond. So they're claiming your interest. Now, I've heard tale about people who are claiming the interest have done this and done that, but I like to see proof. I've heard a lot of talk, but I like to see proof. Some people have been proving things, and so now we can start talking about them. But I don't like hearsay. And to clarify one thing I just got here, and I want to bring this up to everybody here, because everybody's still fighting over taxes, and we have to pay these taxes. Let me make something very clear. This is a bold lie. The 16th Amendment was never ratified per Article 5 of the United States Constitution. This is in congressional record. You can type it in on the internet. June 13th, 1967. The pages are 15641, 15,641 through 15646, 15,646, and this is a court case too that was done by Dwight versus Turner in 1968. And it's very clear it's never been passed or ratified. It's a federal fraud, and they kept it in congressional records to keep it from the public. So we don't have to get involved in a lot of this stuff, but we have to know how to maneuver through their maze that they wrote. And that is the point. That we have to do that. We have to look at that point of view. And I start recommending everybody start collecting rainwater, collect food. Because let's say if the things do hit the fan here in the next month or so, no grocery store is going to have food or water on the shelves. Come on, look what happened to Katrina, man. The food was gone in less than 24 hours. In less than 24 hours it was gone. So it is one of those things.
After hearing about this, we're pretty well stocked up with food, but I made sure to get some extra toilet paper.
Don't forget gas.
And don't use poison oak. I'll tell you that from personal experience. Of course, I didn't get it that way, but the way I got it was bad enough.
Don't forget to store some extra gas cans.
Yeah.
Save your old newspapers.
Well, and also, too, save your old grease.
Enough.
Go ahead.
Enough for how long? Enough.
Couple
months. You always keep at least 6 to 8 months supply on hand at all times because you don't know if a national disaster or something else happens.
6 months.
You don't have to keep it on site.
6 months will do.
Huh?
6 months will do.
Yep. It's a start, but until people came around my house, I had a year and a half stocked up, and I was single at the time. And that's what everybody's telling me. I'm a hoarder because I had a year and a half stocked up on a lot of things. And, people would come by my house or family. You're hoarding. You're doing this. And it's like, where do you come up with these words of hoarding?
That's right. Well, we already survived year 2000 when we were advised to buy this and this and this. I just recently finished the last can of tuna.
Yeah. Well, and also, too, you have an interesting background of where you came from and things that you've lived through before you came here. And that's the point that we've got to take consideration. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
We did not starve.
Huh?
I would like to tell you that the place I came from, we did not starve. It was difficult, but we did not starve.
Yeah, and then everybody wants to say negative things about that country, and they don't even know about it. And you know more about it than most people on this call.
Yeah, that's what's negative. Well, there is. We can say a lot of negative about our country nowadays. So why to say something bad about past country, my old country? It doesn't matter.
Well, yeah, but like you said, the most valuable point is no matter what was going on, nobody starved.
That is correct. Nobody starved.
What country are you from, if I may ask?
Oh, I came here when it was still Soviet Union.
Oh, I'm Russian myself as well.
So you guys both, you guys both been through things that we've never even gone through over here. But we're going through it in a similar situation, but much worse because we're living more like Nazi Germany than over there. But maybe I don't know all the circumstances where both of you lived at and what you guys witnessed and dealt with, so I can't speak on that behalf.
Well, I was 4 when I came to the U.S. It was 1994, right after the USSR crashed and Russia came into power. But there was a lot of poverty. I mean, I remember people used to urinate in the street. Just used to just go on the side of the street and just urinate, take it all out and just urinate, and that was common. So, yeah, it was bad, but I was lucky to get out of it quickly.
Well, I came before. I came here before the break, so I did not know did not want to know what happened after.
Did you have to stand in the lines for bread?
What did you say?
Did you have to stand in lines for the bread?
No, not always. No.
Yeah.
It was just literally what. We always have a little line because the fresh bread was brought to the store and everybody wanted to buy this fresh bread. So, yep. But it was no line, miles and miles. And no. You just several people in the store. It is a different kind of distribution. You never ever, you cannot buy this type of bread. That's what you used to buy in Russia. You just over here they just do not bake this type of bread.
They don't bake it. Yep. Oh yeah.
This is a different type of distribution, and yeah, time to time, yes, we did. But so what?
It wasn't because of a shortage, though.
No, it was not.
Yeah.
We just did not have deficits. Say, for example, not everybody could buy caviar or salmon or something extraordinary. We did not have this stuff, but we had everything else. We did not starve.
Mm-hmm.
And then after all, we learned to live on little, and we can make 50 dishes from potatoes. Maybe somebody starved. I did not starve. My family never starved.
Potatoes are still my favorite dish.
Which is?
Potatoes.
Potatoes are still my favorite.
Good.
Potatoes and butter and salt. Mm.
That's right.
Well, I can't forget the chicken or turkey or brown gravy, beef gravy.
Yeah.
If you were rich, you got that.
Oh God.
I can't comment on that one, and I've never been rich, but I've always put myself working in a restaurant or something like that. So I never starved. That was the one perk you always got being in the restaurants. You always ate.
Well, from what I understand, our dumpsters eat better than 85% of the rest of the world.
Oh, my God, yes.
Unbelievable, the waste that...
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah. Has any of you ever heard or watched any of John Oliver's videos from HBO?
No.
He's got a wonderful America Food Waste. He's got one, too, on districts in our system. Because when they do a district, it is no different than England. And he's from England. And I watch his show, and it's funny. And I've had contact with him on email. But that's been about on Facebook. But the one comment that I love what he did in the show, it was right on dealing especially with food because we waste 60% of our food in this country. And I've witnessed stores throwing away good products just because they were told to throw it away.
Oh yeah.
What the disaster can strike to compare with the Soviet Union? At that time, the 90% of food supply was produced in the Soviet Union, not in Brazil, not in Chile, not in anywhere. Over here, 80% of the produce and all supply at Kroger made somewhere else, not in our country. So
go ahead.
If those countries will decide we will not supply you for any reason, we don't like your money or something else, we would be in a bad condition.
Well, and the one thing I do like what John Oliver says on his show, and he gets into it, he goes, the one thing that us Britons are still pissed off about, we could never take over the United States. And he says that on his program. And he even tells you, Canada, we own Canada, the British government owns Canada, it is part of the United Kingdom, it is not part of the United States. I mean, this guy, he's British, and he does get into some real stuff on his show. And the other one he has that I like is called Forfeiture, and that's a good video to watch. It's 18 or 19 minutes long. And most people, when they go to court cases, when they get their money taken by a cop, and the saddest part it is, people don't, because they don't inform people that they're having a court date on it because the money goes to court. So seeing that the money is sitting on the table in the court and nobody shows up to claim the money, that's how the court claims it, under abandonment. Maritime abandonment. So, I mean, this is how they do it. Not only that, the confiscation of our terrorists in this country alone is a minimum $2 billion a year. That's what the cops and counties are stealing, foreclosing on lands and stealing out of people's cars. And anytime you carry over a certain amount of money, they think it's always for a drug deal. It's not for a drug deal. But cops lie. That's their job. The Supreme Court says they can lie to supposedly come to the truth. And the truth is up to them or their circumstances of whoever's running their maritime courts is. So these are things that we look at, and how do we handle it? So, and the one point is sharing our work with each other. Somebody's got an issue. We can sign an affidavit or sign that affidavit and help them out. Call the courthouse, and ask them if they received so many affidavits yet. And if you don't have the money to ship it or send it, you can still call in and ask them if they received the 5 affidavits. You're just reporting on it. And then they want to know who, what, and how you are. You can't give that information because that's a disclosure information. I don't have that right to do it. Just like you. So, I mean, I'm working in the same capacity. Use their words and their structure against them. And a lot of times when you start doing around most of them and you start getting to know them, you walk in, they don't even question. They just put your paperwork in. And it does take time. And all they do is spinning wheels and they're basically wasting life sitting there in this paper maze. Literally, they're wasting their own lives. Because we weren't supposed to be in this type of thing. We're supposed to be out in the woods, hunting and fishing, taking care of the people around us. I don't know, I guess the natives did pretty good until they got invaded. And then trying to say America was discovered in 1492 by Columbus, that's a joke. That was another invasion. Remember, Columbus was one of the most brutal men of that type of era at that point. Rape, rob, and pillage. So that's why he did so
I like
much.
how they don't tell you that in the history books.
No, they don't. Well, they
Native
can't do that
American
because the reason why Columbus is getting the claim, because Spain has still been trying to put a claim on this soil since that time. I mean, they even tried to put a claim on the Louisiana Purchase, and that didn't go through on them for them. So, you know. So, do we have any more questions, or we can get into other stuff too as well?
I don't have a question, but I have something. I forget what brought it up to me, but a while back, whenever I get into a used bookstore, I always go to their law dictionary section to see what. I got a Bouvier's law dictionary once for $12.
Mm-hmm.
But the last one I got was about 5 months ago. Was a Black's 6th Revised Edition. There's no definition for $1 in it. The word dollar is not in it.
Well, and the other point, too, if you go to your local libraries, because when they get to the point when they try to do their book sales and they can't sell the books, as most libraries, and I know the state of California really does this well, they'll put them out in racks and say free books. And I know I've got a lot of mechanics books and stuff like that free from the library that way. Because if people don't do it and they don't sell it, what do? They throw them literally in the garbage. And you wonder why your history is gone. When I was up at the Capitol until the Paper Act came into place, what was that, Dave, 2005 or 7? Dave, are you there?
I think it was 5.
Okay, because when I was up at the Oregon State Capitol, they were literally throwing historical documents in the garbage. Literally. And I was shocked, that this stuff should be going to museums and stuff like this. And they're going, oh, we just can't afford to do all this stuff. Well, yes, they have the money. They have the resources because all they do is write it off the backside on paper, just like, how most businesses write off on their taxes for debt. The same structure. And that's what I tell people. You go through the secretary, because when you go to business, you have to go through the secretary before you go to the treasury. It's the same business structure as a private business as your corporation is running. And they go through that type of command, or chain of command. And this is the point. Reduction Act. I find it amazing. The Reduction Act, and 60% of the Oregon State is logged, gone. And when people tell you when we log and the deer like it and the forest grows back, it's bullshit. The trees they're planting today are all genetically multicultured crossbreds. Most of them are not even historical real bloodline trees anymore. The deer and elk take 25 to 50 years to come back in that area. You get mushrooms, but all the native plants that were there, even for killing cancer, are gone. They wiped them out. And the other one for eucalyptus bark is another one people are using for cancer. State of California had to put an issue out because they got eucalyptus all around there in the Bay Area, and people were just literally peeling the bark off it and going crazy. Eucalyptus and the weather out there cannot survive when it has no skin on it. Doesn't have a coat on it. It's like us, when we get in too cold of weather, we don't have a coat. We could freeze. So I mean, and we do have the resources out there, but we need to get them grown back for us. Because see, when they log, all right, the taxes and revenue they take in for logging is supposed to come back into for we the people. And then they put it into what they call welfare. No, it's supposed to come to us directly in checks. Or going back to the old days of going into the transfer station and you get your gold and silver. But like I mentioned earlier, they say, oh, we're providing jobs for you. You guys want jobs. You don't want money. You want jobs. So this is how they determine it. We're taking the money. We're putting it back into development. And development is another word of internal slavery. And these guys know it up there. And it's really sad when you sit there and watch these men and women laugh over it, especially attorneys, laughing over the stuff they're doing, with the harm they're doing. It just shows you how evil they really are. You know, they don't have compassion when it comes down to it. And in my lifetime, I've only met one real honest attorney judge. And he died, I think it was in the 80s. But he was a Ninth Circuit Court out of California, Court of Appeals major judge. And I used to miss going down and visiting with him because I used to sit there and have, you know, water or soda or coffee with him. And God, I used to listen to a lot of stuff from that man. You know, and it's interesting because when you do sit around with elders, listen to them. I remember growing up in the 60s and 70s where people were talking about the war, World War II, and then parents around us were telling us, oh, don't listen to them. They're on medication. They're crazy. And they were taught that because, remember, everybody was getting on the drug kick in the 70s and 80s. Then all of a sudden it said, oh, now we got to sit there and we got to start these drug programs because people couldn't handle it. Well, excuse me, who gave them the drugs to do it? The doctors. All right. And if you look, and we got the federal court case says, doctor gives you medication, he's not liable for it. You're responsible. Okay? You get him in a malpractice suit on it, but that's insurance. That's commercial. Nothing happens to him. You know, so, I mean, you know, this is what it comes down to. So when you are the injured party, defendant is their word. I use injured party. You know, I don't use plaintiff and defendant. I use accused, criminal activity, or criminal, or something like that when I'm doing those types of papers. You know,
I wanted to bring up a point
Go ahead.
of the Nuremberg Code that states that if the physician is not a participating, you know, one of the people in the experiment, that they're in violation of the Nuremberg Code and will be tried as the Nuremberg criminal violator that they are.
That's a valid point.
Yeah.
But how many people know that part? Besides
not
you.
enough, and that's why go to your Board of Supervisors meetings, go to your City Council meetings, use the video closed-circuit cameras as your document camera. Get out there and teach your people. If you're in California, you better be complaining and serving your affidavits on your grand jury in every one of the other 57 counties we have here.
And by the way, you can contact the foreman of the grand jury anytime you wish.
Yeah, sometimes it's difficult to find out who it is, but it takes research.
And send it to the clerk of the court. Attention, grand jury foreman.
You can go to C as in cat, G as in grand, J as in jury, CGJA.org. That's California Grand Jury Association.org. And you can read reports on that website and get some ideas on what's been covered and what needs to be investigated. They have a civil and a criminal division. And LA County has what I would consider the true Le Grand Inquest 23-member grand jury.
Mm-hmm.
Due to the 10 million population.
What, may I?
Yeah.
What did the CGJA stand for?
California Grand Jury Association.
Okay.
C is in California, G is in grand, J is in jury, A as in association. And that's the government watchdog in each of those counties.
Could you say again about the Nuremberg thing on doctors and?
Oh, sure. If you go to do maybe a start page search or do something that's a little more private on the internet, you can look up Nuremberg, N-U-R-E-M, I think it's B-E-R-G, code, and there are 10 points to that.
Let me, what I'm going to do here is let me clear off a page here. I only have a few, 50, 80 of them open. Not uncommon for me. People say, your computers can't handle it. Yes, they can. They're designed for it. Okay, anyhow, I'm going to go ahead. Let me try to find it. I'll let you spell it again for me, and I'll find it. I'll put them up on the website.
Okay, cool. Holler when you're ready.
I'm waiting for my page to come up. There it comes up. Okay, spell it for me again.
N-U-R-E-M. I think it's B-E-R-G.
Okay, Nuremberg Code, is that what I'm looking at?
Yeah. And get it from a verifiable reference. Pull it from maybe the Mayo Institute or Mayo Clinic or...
Well, I'm going to do the history, the NCBI. I'm just going to put up all 6 of these, including the foundation code, right from them.
Okay.
Wikipedia.
No, never. That's
yeah,
not...
they do have a PDF up on it.
Well,
yeah, Wikipedia is not a valid, reputable, dependable, reliable source for anything. You want to go to the national, and apologies for this, but the National Institutes of Health actually does keep a valid copy of the Nuremberg Code. And those that were just following orders in Nazi Germany were subject to Nuremberg trials. And I had hoped that the Bush family and the Clinton family all were going to be tried as such. In a perfect world.
Mm-hmm.
But you mentioned something specific about doctors, that if they didn't...
oh, yeah, if a doctor's not a willing participant and subject of the experiment, point number 5, they are in violation of the code and are a war criminal piece of crap. So there.
What do you mean by a participant in the...
Oh, they
They have
to
to take the medication, the drugs, anything that anybody else is taking with them or forcing on them. They have to do the same.
Yeah, I just finished reading The Human Radiation Experiment, which was a horrific thing to read, but it was put out by that perverter of justice, William Jefferson Clinton, to distract from his evil deeds. And Hanford, Washington, California, all across the country, people were exposed to massive doses of radiation. They were injected with it. Remember Tuskegee. The government is a criminal, murderous cartel.
Not the government, because we the people are the government, elected and public servants.
Okay, government health care. Government
That's
run.
one way of putting it, yeah.
Okay, yeah, let me correct myself. Government-run healthcare. And I got a propaganda piece from the State of California Healthcare Foundation and Trust. So that's where they've got their dirty little hands in the pie. That's the people of the California Republic. That's their money. That's lawful bloodline American money. And they're using it to put out their evil propaganda, and I hope I can find somebody to help me make a YouTube video and get this out there. A perfect world.
Well, that would be misappropriation of public funds.
Oh, totally. and they're taking people's non-public information. They're sending it to out-of-state, spies and info collectors, and they're actually thinking that they're going to do a health survey over the telephone. And these ignorant people wouldn't even give their names up. And so I sent a really nasty fax, F-A-X, affidavit of fax to the criminal organization, and I got a call back from one of their attorneys. And the first question I asked him, "What's your bar number?" And I got it. So they're going to be getting a bill.
I can imagine that letter.
Oh, it was so cool. I mean, thanks for all the great help and all the good the increasing the comprehension level, Dave.
You know.
You're awesome. I love when you kick ass, Dave. You're a badass.
I come in peace.
Yes, that's right. I come in peace, and I'm doing this in love, and I will kick your butt in love.
That's right.
No extra charge, as John Wayne used to say.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much.
At least the characters he played.
And I just wanted to put this out there too, that it's I spent the last almost 10 years getting to know my rancher, my farmer, my gardener, and it's super critical to keep your money in your community. And you can visit your local farms. There's the Weston Price Foundation, and Sally Fallon put out a website called realmilk.com. And you just punch in realmilk.com, and you can go to your country, go to your state, whatever, and let your people know where their food's coming from, and get out there and visit your, man, that was the best field trip of my whole entire public school, was going to visit the milk farm.
If I may?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is the bottom of the third hour, Ed. I yield.
Oh, okay. We've already been that far?
Wow.
Wow.
Time is going. So, anyhow, anybody else got some things on their mind? And, we'll go in that direction. Go ahead.
Yeah, I got something on my mind. We got one more hour to the bottom of the third hour. My bad.
Okay, I was going to say, I looked at the clock, 7:30. I was going, it ain't 8:30 yet. Because usually, Dave would say something when it's 11 o'clock at his time. So, excuse me. Burning the candle at both ends again still. But, like I said, we'll be working on this site. And the other point I want to personally thank everybody's pulling all this together. Because without this coming together, we don't have a central link, so we can start putting all this together with cases. When you go start clicking on the link, you can go right to the information. So we're trying to work this to set it up at your fingertips. But the one thing too is that we do need to get some help, if anybody's willing to help, with hard drives and different things. We're going to get a wish list up, and we'll get that out because, we want to get this thing expanding, because Dave and I got a couple other projects we're not going to get into until they're basically hitting the streets. And then when they start hitting the streets, we'll get them out. But I don't like to really get, going on different things until the bird is in my hand. I'd much rather have the bird in my hand than something else.
If I may.
Yeah.
This is Dimitri. I just want to bring up, one of our biggest issues, Ed is saying here, is the hard drives. One of the biggest things we're going to have issues with is if ever YouTube wants to take some of these videos down, because how their community rules and everything, and how they govern themselves, and they really don't have a community to the laws and checks and balances there. They get to make their own decisions. With that being said, we need a place to have backups of all these videos and these audio recordings that we're making right now. And one of the issues we're running into is we don't have a place to put it back up. We don't have a place to back up our website when we start making all these postings with all these letters and all these templates that we want to put up. And that's one of the issues that I was very concerned about when I started coming in here about 2 weeks ago, is if this all hits the fan, the backups are, we just don't have them. I think it'd be very important. You don't want to start over from the beginning. I've definitely lost many hard drives in my days, and I know businesses that go out of business because they lose hard drives. So with that being said, I yield.
Well, the question to me, Dimitri, what suggestions do you have that might be able to do something like that? Is there a way that we have
there's an online service called Crash Plan. There's a monthly service we could do, but I honestly don't want to do anything monthly because I don't want to pay something monthly. I'd rather just get the hard drives, get a NAS that we could just back up all our audio and video to. And the most you would be looking at is probably $400 or $500. We could at least have 6-7 terabytes of storage on a RAID. So if the RAID fails, we could just swap out the hard drive and continue with the backups. And that would be the best way to do it. I mean, like I said, I don't want to do an online storage because if we miss our payment for the month because we didn't get enough of donations, well, then they're just going to dump all our stuff that we have all backed up on them.
Yeah.
So, and that's not. I don't want to have another company in our controlling all this stuff. I want us to have it so we can do the backups when we need to do it, and we can restore them when we want to restore them. And it's not really.
I agree with you. The one thing is, I'm fortunate because my structure is powered by GoDaddy. Not only do I have my disclaimer with them, with everything, and that's the one thing is I do have a disclaimer with GoDaddy. And
is that who hosts your website?
My website right now is called the New Oregon Trackers, and that's what we're going to leave it as, the neworegontrackers.com or .org.
Well, I will tell you, I can host your website free of charge.
You do what?
I can host your website free of charge. I wouldn't go through GoDaddy and pay anybody.
Well, no, I'm doing that with my GoDaddy account because I do have that hosting up. But see, I have a contract with GoDaddy, so they're basically under contract that they have already admitted to me that nobody could get in the back door because they have to go through them first. They know what I'm doing. So they're backing it up, if that makes sense.
Oh, good. They should be.
So, but seeing that you have the other capability, we could talk about that offline because that's part of another backup we could start working on.
Okay.
But I still have a couple of other projects, that I have to get caught up on before I can get to that.
Oh, I know. I know. You still got to get me those documents, don't you?
Huh?
You still got to get me those documents.
Yeah, I know. I mean, like I said, I'm a week behind on a lot of things, but I've been working on so many issues and getting things wrapped up, and we finally got at least the site up. We're trying to get more together, as you know too.
I know.
We're trying to get all this stuff together because once we get this together and we can be able to put it under one roof, then this way, the system can't sit there and try to go ifs, ands, or buts because the one thing, as Dave always says, they can't get upset with us because we use their structure. They're going to get what? Upset with themselves over their own structure?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the point. I like to use their structure.
Yep.
It's their words.
If I may?
Yes.
I don't know if you know of this or if it helps out, but colleges, they renew their stuff a lot. Sell their computers and things like that, very inexpensive out of their store. Are you aware of that?
Yeah. And the other point too, if anybody's not aware of it too, your local TV companies, your satellite companies like Charter Cable and all that, they are supposed to have audio and video equipment for anybody who wants to tape public meetings and public events. They have to provide it because it's part of their contract, so that way they get the write-offs they get.
Yeah, about the gentleman that spoke about the college ones. A lot of times when you're looking at that equipment, they are selling the hardware, the CPUs, the RAMs, the motherboards, and sometimes even the trays that the hard drives go into. But a lot of times they don't sell the hard drives themselves with it because of the information that was stored on it. Sometimes you will get lucky and they will give it to you, but a lot of times they won't, just because they don't want to take the time to actually do a DoD wipe, which is a 7-pass erasure. It just takes too much time, and they'd rather just destroy the hard drives. And a lot of times they'll what they call electromagnetic pulse. Pretty much they put through it. That's a degaussing is what they call it, and that's just a standard they're using now. When you degauss a hard drive, you actually ruin it, so it can't be used again. So that's while I do like their equipment, I still have to purchase their hard drives, the new hard drives for everything I buy. So it's just, you always have to deal with that. And then, like I said, it's just hard to get the space. Space is always expensive. And I yield.
Another place you can check is dealdash.com.
Yes, I have heard of Deal Dash. Hard drives, like I said, they are cheaper on there. I will have to look at that. I have yet to actually even look up a hard drive on Deal Dash. I know I've seen the commercials about it, but I know they sell like tablets and stuff, but I've never seen a hard drive. But I will look into that. Thank you for that comment, and I yield.
I don't think...
On the other point, we could look around in our areas too and ask the schools or anybody's getting rid of anything, and sometimes you could always see them in Free Cycle or Craigslist that people are just getting rid of them. So, I mean, we do got some things we can look at, so, to look into different directions. So, excuse me. And so, I mean, we have options. We could all work on different things, so everybody can take a little time here or that and see what we can rustle up.
That's true, and a lot of this we can put under as educational purposes. And a lot of times schools will be a lot more forthcoming as giving us equipment if we can say that this is educational.
Right.
Oh, yes.
College and universities would probably give it to you if they knew it was educational.
That's very true, especially if people are learning from it, because that's really what they bought the equipment to do with.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually going to reach out to, we have a local Army base around here. I'm going to see if they have anything we can donate that's been turned into the garrison. We might be able to get a couple terabyte drives and maybe even a couple servers. But, like I said, it's their call. It's not mine.
If anybody wants to send you equipment and stuff, where do you have an address?
Tell you what, give me we'll talk next week about that. Let me think about where we actually want to house it, because we might want to think about doing colo hosting, which we actually take our own equipment to an actual data center and host it there to give us the best speed and the best bandwidth that we can get. Because we could store this at our house, but then we have to have the proper bandwidth with it as well. And right now, I don't have the good bandwidth. I know Toasted, his bandwidth is kind of. He's got good bandwidth, but he's already got servers down there. I'd rather have another server on the East Coast as well, so we can start distributing the load, so we can have people that are closer to the East Coast connect to East Coast servers, and people on the West Coast connect to West Coast servers to get our information. And I yield.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. We're on the same thought of that one, putting together a structure so that way we all stay in contact.
It's all about load balancing.
Well, the other point, too, is, I mean, until I had a situation on my land, I used to have, old Cobra 40-channel crystal radios. Because, I mean, that's one too many years of that one.
Somebody's going to try to get it.
Huh?
So if they know you have it, somebody's going to try to get it.
Well, yeah, no kidding. But
whatever.
You know a little bit of my situation I lived with, so it's just one of those things, you know, like I said. Family turns on family when it comes to money.
Yep.
Or their Bible beliefs. And that's what just irritates the hell out of me. Oh, I have a free religion on my way of thinking and my preaching, but you don't care about the neighbors, do you? Or your neighbor down the street. That's the problem. We all have it equally.
Somebody's got a speaker on.
Oh, yeah, it goes off every once in a while. Things like that happen. It's been less this week than it's been in the past, so we can't complain on that one.
Well, we wanted to touch on some other issues tonight, Ed.
Yeah, why don't you start it in, so seeing that we've got this process, hit into the other one.
I put out to Ed today the Lowell R. Long case, which is the key case decision and grand jury, the jury verdict of not guilty of tax evasion and failure to file against Lloyd R. Long in federal district court. The information I sent to Ed, and it's been out on the internet now for about, I'm going to say 10 hours or close to it.
I got some, yeah, I've been posting around. As a matter of fact, I got a couple people I just thought about. I'm going to go post it on their sites right now so they have it.
And this is a key case decision. Lowell Larry Beecraft was the defense attorney in this case. And the jury found him not guilty because Beecraft proved the 16th Amendment to the Constitution. The income tax amendment was never ratified. I think there was only 2 states that actually ratified it.
3.
3? Okay. Well, anyway.
And that wasn't even enough to even ratify it.
That's right. So the jury found him not guilty, period. Okay. And then I was doing some research on IRS forms, and I happened to stumble across the 1040X form. And that 1040X allows you to file it and get all your money back that you've ever paid in taxes. The IRS are experts of ignoring court cases. They are experts at ignoring anything you write and send them. They are experts in code, but not law. Court decisions. They don't want to hear it.
Well, on the other point, I want to add to that one. Go ahead.
And they are unregistered foreign agents.
Mm-hmm.
They are a corporation out of the state of Delaware. They are not registered in any union state. To do business, they do not have a charter. They do not have a bond. No business license. Therefore, they have no jurisdiction inside a union state. I attended a hearing on taxation in 2002, held in Washington, D.C. by We the People Foundation for Constitutional Education. The hearings are available from the foundation on, I think, video and DVD, whichever you prefer. I think that was a 6-day, if I remember right, 6 days of testimony under oath. Larry Beecraft, who won this key case decision, was the attorney in charge. Bob Schultz, president of We the People Foundation, was the chair, and Beecraft was a co-host. In all the testimony, and we heard from forensic accounting people who actually did reverse audits of what the IRS had put out and found that they counterfeited millions of documents. Their testimony alone would have shaken up the average American. Bill Benson, and he had a partner, and I always have trouble remembering his name. But anyway, these two guys spent a year going into every state who supposedly ratified the 16th Amendment and came up with certified copies of the voter registrations and the voting and the actual documents. And they found that only these three states had ratified it and no other state. They dug into both federal and state archives. Took them over a year to do it. So if there's no law that requires you to pay it, there's no law that requires you to file it. And anything you get from the IRS that says I under penalty of perjury, you scratch that out with a black ink pen or black marker, and you do not sign it. Whatever you do, do not sign it. Because it'll say signature. If you want to autograph it, under duress, your name. Because it is a tax
under
fraud.
duress of life, liberty, and the threat of being murdered.
Yes. But anyway, this hearing on taxation was free to the public, and the information that was given there, we had sent to Congress, the IRS, the President. I think I'm not sure who all they actually served. I know I gave it to my three stooges. So I'm sorry, representatives to Congress. At that time, it was Oxley, Devine, and Voinovich who ignored my invitation to come to the hearing. We also presented to the three, not my three stooges, but the IMF, IRS, Congress, all them, 300 questions prior to the hearing for them to be prepared to answer at the hearing. Not one of them showed up for the hearing. So then there were several CNN live meetings held after this hearing, and Congress and all the criminals decided they didn't want to attend any of those. So if you don't have anything to hide, why would you be afraid to go to the public and answer simple questions?
Mm-hmm.
So if you can contact, if you Google We the People Foundation for Constitutional Education, their mailing addresses will come up. And I think the tapes, the series of tapes, they're like $25, if I remember right. Over the years, it might be up a little bit more than that now, but when I got through with the hearing, they were selling those for $25. So
who knows? It might be on YouTube up by now.
Well, it could be, but it's well worth the listen. It's hours of tape. Okay, I'm not trying to discourage you, but if you really are interested in the fraud scheme, this will reveal it to you.
Mm-hmm.
The big point that came out of that hearing, there is no law that requires you to pay an income tax. The authority of the Secretary is found in 26 IRC, Internal Revenue Code, 6331. And you and I, ladies and gentlemen, are not mentioned. Elected and public servants, officers, agencies, etc., are the authority of the Secretary to tax. But even with that now, with knowing that the 16th Amendment was never ratified, 26 is void. IRC 26 is totally void. Ab initio. So you have the 60 key case rulings that I come up with, and which are now posted on the internet, all came from the hearing on taxation. There's none of these cases are found in the IRS code. So a judge who's taking somebody to court goes to the IRS code, flips it back to decisions of the United States Supreme Court. There's none there, and yet there are 60 of them that were intentionally hidden from the code. Not only the code, but the U.S. code. That's intentional fraud, that's collusion, that's RICO. And now that they've been accused of RICO, they have to prove they weren't guilty of it. So our letters and my affidavits have mentioned that in them. So these courts, these pseudo-corporate courts, running amok in the United States, need to be stopped. And the only way we're going to do it is file the criminal charges against them and force our public servants to honor thy oath of office. We already have obstruction of justice by the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Department of Defense.
Yeah, we've
ahead.
filed a lot of them. Go ahead.
We have not wasted our time here for nothing. The structure that we have filed is airtight, and they know it. We used their administrative rules against them. They wrote it, we didn't. So there's some Supreme Court rulings that you people need to know about. The IRS were ruled unconstitutional in 1935 by the United States Supreme Court in U.S. versus Constantine.
Mm-hmm.
So if they are unconstitutional, that means they have no authority in a union state, because all laws and statutes written for the union state must be constitutional.
Across the board, equal. No state can supersede the Constitution in any manner.
That's right. All judges are bound to enforce it. They don't. That's why they're called pseudo-corporate courts. The Administrative Procedures Act, Trading with the Enemies Act, all these things coming out of the bankruptcy in 1933. Farm bills. You see, Congress was not stupid. They hid the bankruptcy in different areas so people would have trouble finding it. Well, the Rod class has 127 researchers, and they started checking into the congressional record. And boy, what they found. Whew. So Rod has that stuff archived. We the People Foundation have the hearing on taxation on tape and video. And another ruling of the Supreme Court is that Congress, by legislation, cannot alter the Constitution from which it derives its power to legislate. So anything the pseudo corporation does, the de facto government does, is high treason against the Constitution. Because all corporations have to obey the laws and statutes and the supreme law of the land, don't they?
Not
and
statutes.
Treaties written. Almost forgot that one.
Yeah, but it's not statutes. They have to go by a congressional record and the Constitution.
Right. So now that you're beginning to see how they have manipulated the structure, I think they used as their bylaw the Constitution for the United States of America. So they think now that because that's our bylaw, we can alter the Constitution through corporate policy.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that a sweet swindle?
They didn't put their bylaw in the second Constitution until after the Civil War. And that was snuck in.
So who were
That's
the three
not
people
even legal to even go by. Go ahead.
Who were the three people that formed this corporation? Congress refuses to give me the names.
Mm-hmm.
So that means they're in collusion with it, guilty of it, high treason against the Constitution, because there was no amendment to the Constitution granting Congress the authority to form a corporation. So they committed high treason against the Constitution the minute they did that. And they've been doing it ever since. Because what happened in 1863, Ed? 7 or 10
March
states, 9 states walked out of Congress in secession.
Mm-hmm.
That was the Congress had to adjourn without day, meaning they didn't have enough votes to conduct business. That became sin die the next day because they didn't have enough votes to call the next session. So from 1863 March to July, I think it was the 15th, Lincoln used his War Powers Act after the South attacked Fort Sumter. And his War Powers Act only is against when a foreign nation attacks the United States, not when a state defends its authority to force the Union out of their state. So the War Powers Act was fraud. He had no authority using the War Powers Act to call Congress back into session.
The session died. That's what sin die means. It died. It ended.
Congress died, sin die the next day. It's around March 5th, 3rd,
March
5th, somewhere in that area. Congress officially died. We haven't had a lawful seating of Congress since 1863.
And see, that's when these guys, the Democrats, all started forming it behind closed door, and they just started edging it in.
So that is why your Republican and Democratic parties have no constitutional authority to choose your candidate for office.
Not only that, we're not supposed to vote, period, because the Constitution is the law of the land. No injured party, no property damage, no say. And that's where a lot of people don't get that. And I've argued with hundreds of people, and including still trying to tell me, oh, we're a British colony, and they send me this stuff that's been filed through different channels of bull. And then I produce congressional records and stuff, and they go, well, what does that mean? I said, well, here's the structure that you were trying to quote me, but here's the real structure that's been butchered out of it.
Yeah, the act of what, 1774?
1774, and that's actually on our disclaimers headline on the Facebook site as well as neworgantrackers.com, and it says it right there. And that is the structure, the root of all money. Root of all evil is money, is basically when you read it what it comes down to.
Actually, I think the root of all evil is the lack of money.
Well, actually, the original structure is the root of all evil is money. Then they changed it to the love of money.
Okay. But for the person who turns to crime to get money, it is his lack of money that turned him to crime, which should never have been based on HJR 192 through the Bankruptcy Act of 1933, when all your bills, utilities, food, clothing, all that stuff, your basic necessities are to be paid for through the trust.
That's Executive Order 2040, FDR, put on $630,000 on each banknote on a birth certificate. All your birth certificates are written off of a banknote.
Then once they have the birth certificate, they send their certificate of live birth. Once they have that, they send the hospital doctor, whoever, sends it down to the Department of Commerce, Secretary of State, Department of Vital Statistics. They write or create a birth certificate for you. A copy is sent back to the county coroner. A copy is sent to the health department. A copy is sent to the Census Bureau. Census Bureau writes a $1.2 million bond and sells them on the Commodities Exchange, and the Federal Reserve buys every one of them, and therein they make you a slave to the Federal Reserve.
When we're supposed to be lawfully taken care of by the structure of the Bankruptcy Act, because they went bankrupt to us, the British government, the national debt of the $20 trillion or whatever they're trying to claim today, they owe us. And the so-called the so-called 13 million jobs that Obama claims he has got, all those are public employees' jobs that have been filled by immigrants illegally. Illegal immigrants.
May I?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So the Federal Reserve owns the birth certificates now?
Yes.
They always owned it unless you claim it, unless you own it and take it away from them. And I filed mine with the Department of Treasury.
And I'm in the process of doing mine.
They freaked out when I did mine. And I'm still going after it. And they, and I got a phone call and they were like, "Are you sure you wanted to file this?" And I said, "Good, give me your name." And I'm trying to get this information. And I said, and they kept on saying, "Are you sure you want to file this?" And I said, "I already filed it." And I'm trying to, well, I need your name. I need to know this, that, and the other thing. And then all of a sudden I got a click. They didn't like what I filed because I own me. They had to prove that they owned me. They can't prove they own me.
Anytime your signature's on a document, they treat it.
Not only that, do not use black ink. That's a dead man's hand. Purple is royalty. Blue is maritime. Okay? Red is living man. Gold is superior.
What about black?
Black is dead man's hand. That's why all the banks have black pens. Oh, yes. And I was in my bank. The last time I got a notary done, I forgot my red pens. And she goes, "Well, I don't have no red pens, but I do got a red magic marker. Would that work for you, Ed?"
Absolutely.
You know it. And she goes, and she just smiled at me. But she goes, "Ed, I can't say anything." And I said, "I don't know what you're talking about."
Hey,
Yes.
I gotta leave, guys. This is very interesting, but my battery's running out.
Well, join us next Monday and pass the word around. Because the more
Toasted knows me as Santa Claus from Cincinnati, so everybody travel safe.
Well, I'm in Arlington, Ohio.
Is what?
I said I'm in Arlington, Ohio.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
What? Could I have your phone number so we could talk?
Yeah.
Okay. What is it? What's your name and number?
It's David Lee Boos, Buess.
No, wait a moment. David Lee.
Buess, B-U-E-S-S. Baker, Universe, Edward, Sam.
Are you on Facebook by any chance?
You betcha.
No, I was talking to the gentleman.
I'm not, but I have someone I could be on, but I'm not.
Oh, no, I don't blame you on that, because I'm not, blaming anybody, because I understand the tracking field, because that's the one thing. That's the only thing I have is internet.
Yeah.
I don't have cell phones or any other type of tracking devices.
Let me get David's number for my...
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, go ahead, David.
It's 419-694-5796.
Five 796.
Yes.
Okay.
And remember, he's East Coast time.
Well, he's on my time.
Well, I'm in
Dayton.
Cincinnati with him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's just right up the road.
Yep.
Yeah.
Whereabouts do you live down there?
Mount Washington.
West side?
What is what?
Isn't that on the west side?
East side. It's just about a mile and a half north of Coney Island.
Oh, okay. Okay. I actually live north and east of Arlington on 68, off of 68. So if you come up 75, you get off at Beaver Dam and bring 30 east.
Okay, I'm a little funny. I'm originally from Michigan, the Jackson area.
Okay.
So I'm trapped here in Cincinnati.
Okay. Anyway, I have a nephew that lives down there.
Is he into everything that you're?
Well, he's in Dayton. He's an electrical engineer. He's a little bit busy to get into this stuff, but I keep him abreast.
Did you say you keep him depressed over it?
I step on family toes big time.
I did a little homework once on that, on the ink colors, and if you'll look at the color of ink that the Postal Service uses on a money order, and you'll look at the color of ink that they use in the fraudulent courts where they translate into other languages, so you know they're no good. That ink is purple.
Mm-hmm.
So I have filed with the Postmaster.
Could you go over the colors again, please?
Yeah, let them finish up, and I'll get back to it.
No, go ahead and tell her, Ed, because this might take some time.
Okay. Red is living man, woman. Blue is maritime. Purple is royalty. Black is dead man's hand. That's why everybody wants you to sign in black ink, because black is dead.
Wow.
Well, that would be hard to imagine if a dead man signing the document.
Well, yes, that is true.
Understand.
Well, we got dead people voting, so no surprise.
Reasons.
They what?
They do it for commodities fraud.
Mm-hmm.
They sell your name.
When you write a check, they even sell your check structure on their structure, back and forth to each other.
And then there was gold.
Yeah, gold is superior.
So would it be better, as good to use gold as red?
Oh, yeah. But I like using blood. And I have literally signed and autographed my stuff and my thumbprints in blood. Because the reason why I do it that way, and especially putting my blood thumbprint on instruments, is DNA. They can't, that's right there. Nobody can dispute that. I didn't sign that.
What if they pass a law saying that if you sign in blood, you're volunteering your blood to them?
That can only be administrative rules, and it only applies to elected and public servants.
Okay.
That's right.
Thank you. I yield.
Yeah, no problem. I'll work on getting some more of this stuff posted up on the Facebook, and we'll work on getting that, because I've got to find the other template, or not template, the actual structure of it, and that came from the structure of England Bank itself.
So let's comprehend this. The Congress, sin die, never to meet again, is writing corporate policy, not law and statute.
And it's like if you own a business or you work for a business company, you're to go by the business rules while you're on the clock only. Now, we're not a member of this corporation unless we're registered with them or letting them claim their authority over us, which they have forcefully done, in the last basically 15 years.
Well, it's fraud by trickery. However you look at it, it's all fraud by trickery.
Oh, yeah. No, nobody would be denying that one.
Yeah. So, here, the 16th American Jurisprudence, second edition, Section 177, any law written in violation to this Constitution is as though it was never written, and no one is obligated to obey it.
Mm-hmm.
So read the 16th American Jurisprudence, second edition, Section 177. It's only like a page and a half. And then cut, copy, and paste that to a document and print it and put it on your wall, so every time you're at your computer, I don't have to obey this.
Could you run that by us again, please?
Go ahead.
Could you run that by us again, please? You talk faster than I can write.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's the 16th American Jurisprudence, second edition, Section 177. I believe that was, 1902, Ed?
19. I thought that was 29.
29? Okay. I forgot what year it was published.
Then I have the other one that I'll go back and read from 1967 in congressional records. I'll get back to it as soon as I find it, because I was trying to work on something else, but let me dive back on that one here in a minute.
Did you
get
the information?
Yes, thank you. I yield.
Okay. But see, we're not educated in our public schools as to any law, statute, codes, jurisprudence, to keep us dummied down. Because if the American people really understood what our legislators have done to us, there would probably be mutiny in the streets and ropes around trees. We have been duped, to say the least. And if you want to know about I brought this up on the show before, read page 400, Congressional Record, House, December 13th, 1929. The bankruptcy was a staged event to deny the American people their payment of the debt owed to us following World War I. And it says so right about halfway down in that document. It's a fraud scheme by the international banking community.
Yeah. Excuse me, ma'am. Are you on Facebook by any chance?
Are you referring to me?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I have a page, but I'm never on there because I don't really know how to use it.
Oh, okay, because I was going to say, because I could post this back up on Revolution News and our Facebook sites, too, so you can go get it right off of it.
Okay, I will try to maneuver that. I didn't grow up with computers, so I'm a little bit technically challenged.
Don't worry, I'm still in diapers. Everybody could testify to that one.
Ed and I use our computers for, what do they call that, word processors, Ed?
Yeah.
I use mine for porn.
Well, everybody has the right. Not a choice, it's a right. That's the thing, is knowing what a right is and knowing what a privilege is. And like I said, choice didn't become a word until the 1990s, promoted by Disney Channel.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The other day I had a guy send me a porn thing. It up and I left it up there, and then afterward I started to type a document. I said, well, for all you keylogger hackers, I hope you enjoyed the movie.
So, anyhow, I want to read this one to you, so this way you get this one clearly. This was filed against John F. Kennedy. Okay, and I put this out in a lot of our stuff. It is clearly established the principle of law that an attorney must represent a corporation. It is being incorporeal and a creature of law. An attorney represents an artificial identity, must appear with the corporation charters and law in his hand. A person acting as an attorney for a foreign principal must be registered to act on the principal's behalf. Oh, see the Foreign Agents Registration Act. The Foreign Administration Act. If these men and women are not registered with the Department of Justice as basically foreigners, it's a prison term. Anyhow, Victor Roberts versus John F. Kennedy, 376 U.S. 605, filed to file a foreign agent registration statement. Goes directly to jurisdiction and lack of standing to be before this court is a felony. So if you don't register, it's a felony under 18 U.S.C. 29-915. So when John F. Kennedy was starting to put in Executive Order 110 that was supposed to put us back to the greenback dollars, you know, backed by something, even if it came back by we the people in our own country, what they're doing to us by destroying us by, you know, contracting out of our country. But this was a case that was done by John F. Kennedy when they went after him. They couldn't shut him up on the stuff he was doing because he was working on putting this country back. And then his brother died, Ted, in a mysterious plane accident over Atlantic Ocean when he was running against Hillary Clinton for senator. When she was running for senator in New York.
Wasn't that John Jr.?
Yes. Oh, yeah, John Jr., you're right. Thank you. I don't have a problem being corrected, but that's right. It was John Jr.
Now, Bobby was the one that was assassinated.
Yeah. Yeah, Robert.
I think Ted's still alive. If he isn't, he died of old age.
No, he's dead.
Died. Oh, did you notice that before Ted had passed away, the Queen came to Washington and knighted Ted as Sir Ted Kennedy?
No.
And nobody, I think except me, bitched one bit. That is a title of nobility.
Can't have it in this country.
Kennedy should have been thrown out of Congress immediately.
Could it be that that's how come it's not a violation of the separation of powers?
No, it still is a violation, but they're not acting over it. They're overlooking it.
You mean what I was going to say when the president is an attorney because he's actually representing a corporation, so he has to be the CEO.
Right, and that's where technically, where if you become elected senator, state representative, House representative, city council, mayor, you're an attorney because you're writing their codes. You're mandatory an attorney the minute you got the first code passed. They don't tell the general public this, and most of the guys on the lower city council and stuff don't even know it themselves, and then they wonder why they get in trouble or they get threatened. That's the one thing they couldn't do to me when they tried to do that stuff to me, and when I won my first election. They wanted me to go through this training class and all this stuff about what I was supposed to learn and how I was supposed to handle my seat. And I said, well, that's very interesting. I said, I have the Constitution here. Isn't that what I'm supposed to go by? Oh, well, you could go by this, that, and the other thing, and we don't go by that.
Well, you see, I sent to all the elected officials in Washington, D.C., a request that they sign the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, that they supply a signed copy of their oath of office, and but there was one other thing I asked them to do. I got no response from anyone. If your congressman, representatives, and senators refuse to give you a copy of their oath and refuse to sign the Pledge of Allegiance, what does that tell you?
Not only that, we have record in our county with a judge admitting to it in court he doesn't have an oath. We got it on record. The district attorney doesn't have an oath. We went to file on them, and everybody wanted to overlook it. And then I was threatened again. If I keep filing this, what was it said? Ed, you better be careful because you don't know what you might run into. And I said, thank you for the warning. I'll pack an extra 100 rounds with me.
Yeah. In California, Attorney General Bill Lockyer did a quo warranto on behalf of two relators, or I call them the relators, RELATOR. And when someone is in usurpation of an office of the public trust, it creates a vacancy of the office when they don't have their certificate of election or their oath of office, or if they're appointed, they still must have an oath. I don't care if you're the dog catcher.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
California used to have dog catchers all around the state picking up turds until one little guy just started bitching because, oh my God, I got dog shit on me, and even though it's his job, and I don't know why he got it on him, but he wanted to sue the city of San Francisco for health reasons. So that's why, instead of him winning the lawsuit, they just eliminated that department completely. Yeah.
Yeah, this is Toasted, exploring some news, came across something interesting. Fukushima radiation hits the mainstream news. Finally. And with that, I yield. Yeah, finally.
Oh, tell me about it. I live just 8 miles from the beach. And I've seen what it does to the starfish. I've seen some of the fish that comes out of the water with these radiated burn marks on them. You know? I mean, oh, the other point I want to bring to your attention to everybody, too. Please do not buy any shrimp from Taiwan or China. They're pumped with gelatin and plastic to make them bigger so that way they can weigh more. Be very careful of the food you're eating, especially when it comes out of a foreign country. Because after they destroyed a lot of California's farming land, they've been shipping their products from Mexico up here, and that's where we just started eating them because you could taste the flavor of it with the chemicals in it from being sprayed or whatever chemicals they're using. Yep. Oh, yeah, 3 hours. We got 3 hours in on this one. Well, I think that, we should wrap it up for people.
Right.
And like I said, we're available. You can get a hold of us. Our emails are out there, and our numbers have been said. I'm still behind on cases. I've got one situation I have to pay attention to and get out as soon as I get a catnap in. That's the one thing I'm going to be focusing until I get it out, and then once that's out, I got to work on the other one, including the other one that you sent me, Dave. But until I get the other project, and you know what I'm talking about, I have to work and get that out.
Right.
Because that's hindering us right now.
Right.
So, go ahead.
The program tonight wasn't exactly the format Ed and I were planning on following, but there are times when people call in that you have to yield to their information and their questions.
Mm-hmm.
And even though it may disrupt what we had planned on doing for the night, we feel, Ed and I both feel this way, that our fellow Americans deserve the best of us. And that is why we do what we do.
That's why we're not
you for educational purposes, that you might educate yourself based on the administrative rules, procedures of the United States. And, our love for this country, our love for the men and women here, hardworking Americans do not deserve what they're getting. And so we're here for you. And we just appreciate every one of you for what you're trying to do, too, to help us. So with that, I'll yield, Ed.
No problem. That's the one thing. See, we don't go by a scripted program because you don't know what's going to happen. And that's the beauty of it. That's what gives us our freedom without sponsors on this. So if you do see a couple of the links that you could help out, we'll get a list up there of things that we could use. If you run across something, please, we can figure out how to get it here, or, you know, if you could send it, you know, we'll figure out to get it to the proper channels. As soon as we can get the organ trackers up and fully loaded and running, you know, because we're going to be putting up a whole bunch of information. I've got other friends of mine that have written stuff up that have actually worked, and they were surprised. So we want to get this stuff out, but, you know, we're going to have to get not broad-based, but expand our working areas a little bit more so we can put all this stuff up. So, you know, and believe me, I'm not one that's used to asking for, you know, help in any manner, but to get this out, it would help. So, you know, just things like that. You know, if you run across different supplies, you know, that work for computers or stuff, extra or whatever, you know, put them in a box. We'll figure it out. You know, because who knows how it works, you know, and that's the whole thing. That's the whole beauty about working all this together. You know, and I would like to say, you know, a blessing to all. Travel safely. The Great Spirit will walk with you. And the most important, valuable lesson I learned, doesn't matter what you have faith in, the main point is, and I said the main point is having faith in yourself. You have to have faith in yourself before you could have faith in anything else, because you can't sit there and go to another structure and have faith, and you don't even have faith in yourself. We've got to get our strength back in this country. And we got to get men and women standing up like we used to do, like our elders used to do, until how the situation happened, mainly when things really started going rocky, was after Vietnam. I know a lot of friends of mine that were in Vietnam, and when they woke up to the truth of when they were slaughtering children and women for no reason over minerals, and then like the guys from Iraq coming back, and the guys coming back from these other countries the last 15 years, you know, they're realizing that they're fighting for nothing. They think they're fighting for the country the way they were brought up. Then they get over the war and they realize they're fighting over minerals. You know, what does gold stand for? Gold, oil. I'm trying to remember the other one, and then it's drugs.
Minerals.
Huh?
Minerals.
No, gold. G is gold, oil. Oh, land and gold. Land and drugs. That covers mineral, and that's what these guys go over and they fight over, and they're realizing it. I mean, I've got friends of mine that I'm, you know, so blessed they're alive in their 60s, late 60s, 70s, and 80s that were in Nam. And they've had a lot of things they've carried on their shoulders that, you know, sometimes they'll talk a little bit about, but mainly they don't want to discuss it at all. Because it's horrifying what they went through. And the suicide rates, we wonder why. We know why. When you start waking up to things that you've done wrong, it's pretty frustrating. Heavy emotional tolls.
Well, I would encourage any veteran who has come back from the Middle East and you got your physical when you returned, you better go see a regular doctor. Because these medical people in the U.S. here, your military medical staff, are trained to lie about your condition. I had a niece come back from over there, got a clean bill of health, and 3 months later she was diagnosed with breast cancer through radiation.
Mm-hmm. And not only that, they're trying to get all the veterans to go in for mental evaluation so they can classify you as something. The minute they classify you, that's how they're using that medical reason to disarm you. Like a driver's license. They don't take you to court, and they don't have rights to do this, but they're doing it. So, peace and may the Great Spirit walk with you and bless you. And that's where I'm at the end. Anybody else?
I have a quick question, if I may, please.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay, if I go to the Hostess website, And then how would I go to find what you put up?
On which website? Our site, the neworgantrackers.com?
No. My mind lost it. Toasted information, news, and...
Okay, well, he's got his right now. We've got his... we were going to have his structure set up here in the next couple of days. So when you go to that site, you just clicked on Revolution News and Information, and all his stuff should pop up here within the next week on the site.
Okay, so when I go to his...
It's just finding the time to work on it.
Let Toast speak. He'll tell you. Go ahead, Toast.
It's just finding the time to work on it. We'll make sure a link is provided to the new organ trackers, so you can find Ed's material. And Ed, I've got to get you to start pasting some of your material to our site as well. And with that, I yield.
Yeah, I know. I've got to do that. That's the one thing I know. I just got into that. We're working on that one. So we're going to make sure it's on both sites. So this way, either site anybody goes to will have both of the structure on it. It's not just about one side or the other. We're all in this together.
Okay, so one or the other will do it.
Right. But like I said, we're working on getting this stuff up. And I don't think that, Toast, you have a website that's up working right now, don't you?
Yeah, revnews.us. It's just nothing's on it right now.
So tell her about it and get that out too, so we get that.
No, I've got all that from our other calls, but this is my first time on this call. This is my first time, but I have other ones that I'm on. So yeah, the Rev News. I got all that from the other calls.
Yeah, because eventually we're working to tie all this stuff up so that way it's available on both sites, so people don't have to run back and forth. It'll be. Because eventually we both want to get it so it's equal of information on it.
Okay, thank you. I yield.
Thanks to D.
The information on tax fraud in America is on Facebook under that name, Tax Fraud in America, and it's on Facebook. There is a counterfeit Tax Fraud in America website out there, but you want the one on Facebook.
Okay, Tax Fraud in America. That's the Facebook.com, and then Tax Fraud in America?
I think it's just Facebook. You don't even have to put .com.
Yeah, Tax Fraud in America on Facebook.
Yep. Yeah, so you just type in tax fraud, it's the third result.
So if I do Facebook.com / then Tax Fraud in America, that would
do a search on Facebook. Just do a search on Facebook for tax fraud. It's the third result. It'll say tax fraud in America. Click it, and you're there.
Oh, yes. And if I may, real quick, everyone meet the administrator of RevNews.USD himself that was just speaking.
If you can't remember Dimitri, you can call me D.
Oh, that's D. Oh, okay.
Yeah, because like I said, we're all trying to work and put all this stuff together so we're all on the same page, and once we can get all this stuff together, it's going to start just putting things, and make it easy for people. Because, if we don't sit there and work with each other, what future do your bloodline, our bloodline, any lawful American, any immigrant legally has been in this country to pass his or her bloodline down? I don't have a problem with that. I do not support any form of amnesty, and I do support sending the 118 million that have arrived in this country in the last 15 years home. Because we've had that much of an influx in the last 15 years. We've had over 35 million just since Obama's been in office.
One other point I want to make before we close, and I don't remember saying this on the show tonight, but if you go to Black's Law Dictionary, 8th edition, and you look under INN of court, there's all the evidence you need that your lawyer, attorney, and judge will lie to you under conflict of interest.
That's why you want to ask them for a conflict of interest statement.
Page 805, Black's Law 8th edition, under in of court. I asked an attorney for a conflict of interest before I hired him, and he said, I won't work for you.
Right.
And I perfectly knew well what I was going to go at him with.
Mm-hmm.
So, research is a wonderful thing. But I don't know. I can't die. At one point, I had 10,000 hours when I had AOL as a server. And they sent me a notice, you're spending an awful lot of time on the internet. You now have surpassed 10,000 hours.
A lot of research.
So that's the kind of research that Ed and I've done, and the years that it took to do it. Boy, you have to really care about your nation to do this, because my wife didn't understand it. She didn't want anything to do with politics. And I just said, okay, go bury yourself in your room. And so anyway, it almost cost me my marriage.
Yeah, mine did.
So we're sincere about this. We really are sincere about it. And we're trying to wake America up before the new order for the world, or the new world order crap that they're trying to shove down our throats. And the time is getting close, people. It is really getting close. So if we're to stop it, we've got to do it now. And that's why it's so important to file these affidavits, file the structures, especially what Dave and I have done, put out, other people have done. Hopefully we'll get them to get their information. We start autographing each other's structure. Now we're not speaking as one or two, we start speaking in numbers. We get up to a certain number, the media will not turn their head away for that one. Right. First, they're going to want to try to make a mockery of it. They can't, so they'll get embarrassed, and then that way it's already done. Ed and I have been feeding both Hillary for president supporters and Donald Trump for president with information. We've asked them the same questions, both of them. Not one of them so far has responded to anything. Mm-hmm. They know that we know, but they don't want the world to know. And they sure don't want you to know. Definitely. That's why we post it the question to them, and then we put it on our Facebook. Mine, by the way, is David Lee, and then use your space bar on the computer, and then put my last name in, BUESS, on Facebook. That's my Facebook page. Okay. So anytime you're on Facebook and you see my picture, or my family picture, just click on the family picture. It'll bring you right to my webpage.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else before we click off here? Okay, folks, we appreciate your time and spending time with us and the conversations, and we would like to thank our co-host, and we want to thank our men that are people that are running our structure here. And most of all, we would like to extend a thank you to Toast, because if it wasn't for Toast, right now, none of this would be to the point it is, and we wouldn't be talking right now if it wasn't for Toast.
Thank you for that, Ed.
Thank you, sir, very much.
And thank you for that, Dave.
Toast is awesome.
Thank you, everyone.
Toast is awesome.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't used to think I was so awesome way back when, but with that, I think it's time we go ahead and close it out. What do y'all say?
All right.
This is Toasted.
Okay, good night, everybody. Next Monday is another session. I hope you'll join us. Bring friends, relatives, enemies. Let's educate them.
Let's educate everyone. And this is Toasted.
Yes.
And that was the disclaimers with Dave and Edward Johnston. It is 10/3/2016. And this will be up as soon as possible on Revolution News and Information. This is Toasted with Revolution News and Information. That's Ed, that's Dave, and that's D in the background somewhere. Anyway, peace out, everyone. Blessings.